Chapter 34:25. Originally, all the Holy Spirits on this planet had died, and the remaining ones were all in the ascending spirit realm. Moreover, this place was sealed by a special array, so no one could leave. But while he was recuperating, the seal had already disappeared. There were people all around, completely surrounding the treasure vault and sealing the space around it. These people were all Holy Spirits. Zichen looked at the Holy Spirits in shock, and then saw the greed and killing intent in their eyes. Of course, there was also a little shock. After all, Zichen was only one person, and a 3-star Holy Spirit at that. How could he kill all the masters of the Julin clan? Even the powerful leader Julin was killed. One had to know that Julin's combat power was very strong. Even if he encountered a 6-star Holy Spirit, he could still fight. What do you mean by this? Zichen looked at the Holy Spirits, who were eyeing him covetously. Brat, are you pretending to be stupid? Don't you know what we mean? One of the Holy Spirits laughed sarcastically. The Holy Spirit's realm was very high. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts, but he couldn't sense the Holy Spirit's realm through his aura. Obviously, even if the Holy Spirit wasn't a 6-star master, he was definitely a master at the level of Julin. Zichen's eyes continued to move, and he saw one Holy Spirit after another. He couldn't sense the aura of these Holy Spirits. Obviously, during the time he was in the treasure vault, many masters from different forces rushed over as soon as they heard the news. Now, even if Zichen fought with all his might, he could only defeat one opponent at most. You want the spoils? I'll give them to you, Zichen said again. The Holy Spirit said coldly. We want the spoils, but that's not our main purpose. Hand over the Thunder skills and the Thunder clan battle weapon you have, Zichen said. I can give you the spoils, but do you dare to take the Thunder skills? Do you think you can get a share of the Holy Thunder clan's things? The Holy Spirit was stunned at first, but then he laughed loudly. There was laughter all around. Kid, I thought you were a vicious and merciless person since you were able to kill Julin, but I didn't expect you to be so childish. Let me tell you, although the Holy Thunder region is powerful, not everyone in the Holy Spirit world gives face to the Holy Thunder clan. Murderous intent flickered in the other party's eyes. The name of the Holy Thunder clan isn't always useful. Now, hand it over quickly, or you will die a horrible death. At this moment, a lot of pressure fell on Zichen. Zichen's body couldn't move at all. The pressure from these experts was too terrifying, even surpassing that of the void outside. In the face of such pressure, Zichen found it extremely difficult to speak even if he wanted to. Cold sweat dripped from his face. This time, Zichen truly felt the threat of death. He didn't even have the chance to make a move. These people could kill him just by using pressure alone. One after another, powerful auras fell on Zichen. Through these auras, Zichen not only sensed many 6-star Holy Spirits, but also 7-star Holy Spirits. A sense of helplessness rose in his heart, and his eyes were full of helplessness. Kid! Just as the Sacred Spirit was about to say something, the pressure on Zichen's body suddenly disappeared before he could finish his sentence. The group of Holy Spirits was stunned, and then they all looked up at the sky. They saw a person standing there. To be precise, it was a little girl. She wasn't very old, and she was standing in the air, looking down at the group of Holy Spirits indifferently. Zichen looked up and saw the little girl. The moment he saw the other party's appearance, his expression changed because he recognized the other party. It was the little girl that he had scared away when he first entered the giant forest's treasure trove. At that time, the little girl had left behind a talisman in a panic. 10 years ago, that talisman had saved his life. Who are you? All the Holy Spirits looked at the little girl, and their faces were full of vigilance. She could dissolve the pressure of everyone's auras in an instant, so she was obviously not weak. The little girl ignored everyone and looked down at Zichen. She praised him. Well done! Her voice was very young, but at this moment, she was pretending to be an elder. It was a little strange. Who exactly are you? The Holy Spirit who was ignored was angry. He took a step forward, and his powerful aura went straight for the little girl. The little girl waved her hand gently, and a strong wind blew away the Holy Spirit's aura. In the next moment, the 6-star Holy Spirit was sent flying in the air. With just a wave of her hand, she sent a 6-star Holy Spirit flying. How powerful was this little girl? The group of Holy Spirits' faces changed, and some of them subconsciously stepped back. Zichen was also very shocked. He didn't expect this little girl to be so powerful. Yiling, you broke the rules. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from outside the planet. Yiling looked up at the voice, and a trace of disdain flashed in the corner of her mouth. Rules? You have rules in this star zone? Humph, this isn't your sacred thunder tribe. You can't do whatever you want here. The voice that came from nowhere was clearly dissatisfied. Yiling was still disdainful. Why? Are you going to fight me? Then let me see if the weapon you used to seal the void has reached the venerable level. As soon as she said that, the Holy Spirits who had retreated were shocked again. This time, when they looked at the little girl, not only was there no anger, but there was also great respect. Greetings, Holy Senior! The group of Holy Spirits bowed respectfully. Holy Senior was an existence that surpassed the Holy Spirits. This level of powerhouse belonged to the top of the Holy Spirit realm, and they could easily destroy them with a snap of their fingers. When they found out the little girl's identity, they also guessed the identity of the person who was talking to her. That person was the master of this holy realm. Zichen was also shocked. He did not expect this little girl to have such a powerful background. The Holy Senior of the Holy Thunder Clan. But why did she look like a child? Didn't they say that Holy Seniors were all patriarchs? Suddenly Zichen thought of another patriarch. Yi Mai. The other party was a child, but her identity was frighteningly high. Yi Mai Yiling. Could she be the spiritual ancestor of the two spiritual ancestors? Zichen widened his eyes in disbelief. The Holy Thunder Realm is so impressive. Why? Do you really think you are invincible? The voice of the Holy Senior rang out again. I don't know if we are invincible or not. I only know that you are bullying us with numbers, and you are shamelessly suppressing us with a higher cultivation level. Yiling said. Fearless, I won't bully you. I have 3-star Holy Spirits on my side. You can send 3-star Holy Spirits or 4-star Holy Spirits. As long as they can kill my people, you can do it. I won't interfere in the middle. Humph! The Holy Senior named Fearless snorted coldly. As a Holy Senior, of course he knew what happened in this star realm. He clearly saw Zichen's combat strength. Not to mention those of the same level, even 4-star Holy Spirits would not be able to suppress him. One-on-one was even more impossible. I will take it as giving Lady face. Fearless snorted again. Yiling smiled and said, That's good. He has some connections with Lady. After saying that, Yiling came to Zichen's side and said, Let's go. Your mission is complete. Zichen shook his head slightly. Please wait a moment, Holy Senior. Chapter 34-26. When Zichen was killing the 4-star Holy Spirits, many Holy Spirits below 4-star were killed by the Holy Spirit Flying Dagger. Those were the spoils of war, and Zichen did not have the time to pick them up. Of course, Zichen did not want his spoils to be taken away by others. With the Holy Venerate around, he was not afraid of the crowd. The Holy Spirits were all taken aback by this loud shout, which was clearly a show of strength and intimidation. Seeing that the Holy Spirits did not respond, Zichen said again, If you don't hand them over, none of you will leave here alive today. All of you will die. The meaning behind his words was even more obvious, and all of the Holy Spirit's expressions turned extremely ugly upon hearing this. If the Holy Venerate was not here, they could have killed this guy with one slap. Why? Are you not going to hand them over? Zichen said angrily. Don't you feel ashamed? How dare you steal the spoils of a 3-star Holy Spirit? This is the Holy Venerate's territory. As the Holy Venerate's subordinates, don't you feel ashamed of your actions? You are tarnishing the Holy Venerate's reputation so brazenly. What use do the Holy Venerate have for you? The crowd was speechless. How did this have anything to do with the Holy Venerate? However, the Holy Venerate's consciousness was here. They could clearly feel a chill coming from the outside world. None of them said anything and took out their spoils. Zichen took them away without hesitation. He would not come to this place a second time, so there was no need for him to leave his spoils to these ill-intentioned people. The Patriarch of Yiling watched silently. She did not say anything, but she did not object either. After Zichen collected all of the spoils of war, he walked over to Yiling with a smile on his face. Greetings, Patriarch! Zichen was not embarrassed at all when he bowed to a little girl. Instead, he greeted her warmly. Yiling waved her hand and said, "Let's go." The next moment, the two of them disappeared. Trash! At the same time, the fearless Holy Venerate left a cold voice and his consciousness also left. The mighty Julin Holy Spirit sect was destroyed by a 3-star Holy Spirit sect. Ancestor, what's going on? After leaving the star field, Zichen finally asked the question in his heart. Julin's forces are related to a certain family in the Holy Thunder region, said Yiling's great ancestor. Could it be that someone from the Thunder clan wants to kill me? Zichen asked. There's no direct evidence yet. I'll get someone to investigate it carefully when I get back, Yiling said. Your performance this time was very good. Through this matter, you can also warn the other forces that when we, the Holy Thunder clan, turn a blind eye, we are showing the greatest benevolence and forgiveness to this world. Once we become serious, the 3 stars can destroy a force. When Zichen heard this, his eyes immediately lit up. If that's the case, may I ask if there will be additional rewards when we return? Yiling glanced at Zichen and said, A heavenly sovereign has protected you for 10 years, is this not enough of a reward? Zichen was stunned. It seemed that Yiling's great ancestor was already here when he came to this star field. The escape talisman last time was also deliberately left behind by the great ancestor. However, in the past 10 years, Zichen's life was not satisfactory. Other than fighting and killing, he also had to be vigilant of the energy hand in the void at all times. Of course, Zichen did not try to bargain with the great ancestor, because the great ancestor would definitely say that this was the greatest training for him. There was no need to think about additional rewards. He could only admit that he was unlucky. Fortunately, this time, he gained a lot. Not only did he break through, but his physical body also became stronger. As long as he went back and cultivated in seclusion for a while, he believed that his physical body would be able to break through again and reach the 3-star Holy Force realm. At the same time, there were many spoils of war that had not been counted. After returning to the Holy Thunder region, Yiling and Zichen separated. Looking at the spirit ancestor who had disappeared, Zichen fell into deep thought. Who was it that wanted to harm him this time? It had been a long time since he had returned to the world to take a look. Zichen planned to go there first. He could go back with just a thought. However, after some consideration, Zichen decided to teleport over from the trading place. At the same time, he wanted to see how his world had developed over the past 10 years. After teleporting over and over again, Zichen arrived at the Gahai sacred region. After that, he walked toward the teleportation portal. There were many people waiting to be teleported here. He did not know if they were going to his world. Zichen, who was walking forward, quickly thought of a problem. He did not know what his world was called, and how should he teleport. He shook his head and planned to leave directly. Suddenly, a conversation attracted his attention. I want to go to the Tianwu world. Please open the teleportation portal. The teleportation portal is broken. It was broken a while ago. Didn't you say that it would be fixed today? Keep waiting. I wonder when it will be fixed. Why are you talking so much nonsense? If I ask you to wait, then wait. If you can't wait, fly over from the void yourself. Zichen, who was preparing to leave, walked over. If he was not wrong, that Tianwu world should be his world. However, why was it not allowed to be teleported? Zichen walked closer, looked at the depressed ascending spirit realm cultivator, and asked, You want to go to the Tianwu world? The other party looked at Zichen warily. Zichen smiled and said, Don't misunderstand. I also plan to go there, but unfortunately I can't teleport. You come here often. Do you know when this teleportation portal was broken? The ascending spirit realm cultivator smiled bitterly and said, It started to break 10 years ago. It was just that it was repaired several times during this period. Who knew that it would break again now? Recently it has been broken for 3 months. Zichen asked doubtfully, How can a teleportation portal be broken so easily? The ascending spirit realm cultivator glanced at the guard beside him and hesitated to speak. You too, scrammed to the side. Don't get in the way here. The guard from before pointed at Zichen and said. Zichen glanced at the guard, then looked at the teleportation portal in front of him and said, This teleportation portal is broken. Is it your idea, or your family's idea? The ascending spirit realm cultivator beside him had a look of fear on his face. He tugged at the corner of Zichen's clothes and said, Little brother, don't cause trouble. This is the Ganhai sanctuary. We'll just wait a few more days. Zichen said, If it's really broken, it's fine to wait a few days. However, this teleportation portal is clearly not broken. What did you say? A cold, killing intent appeared in the eyes of the guard from before. Zichen pointed at the teleportation portal in front of them and said, I said, this teleportation portal is not broken at all. Why do we have to wait? You're courting death. The guard stepped forward and released the aura of an intermediate ascending spirit realm cultivator, suppressing Zichen. Zichen said, I have some understanding of teleportation portals. I'm very sure that it's in good condition. The ascending spirit realm cultivator beside him kept winking at Zichen, but Zichen was unmoved. Suddenly, a long spear flew over from the side and directly entered the teleportation portal. The patterns on the teleportation portal lit up a few times and were destroyed. Chapter 34:27. The long spear was inserted into the teleportation array, completely destroying it. A middle-aged man walked over and looked at Zichen coldly. Is it broken now? Zichen nodded and said, Yes. The middle-aged man sneered and said, At least you have good eyesight. Men, capture these 2 guys who destroyed the teleportation array. The spirit ascension realm cultivator beside Zichen's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly begged for mercy in horror. Sir, it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. The middle-aged man snorted and said, They actually dared to fight in the Ganhai sanctuary and damage the teleportation array, causing the future Tianwu world to be unable to use the teleportation array for at least 10 years. Their crimes are punishable by death. When the other guards heard this, they all ran over, all of them filled with killing intent. Zichen laughed when he heard this. Who gave you the courage to invert black and white? Invert black and white? The spirit ascension realm cultivator raised his eyebrows and said angrily, So many people saw it with their own eyes, and you actually said that I inverted black and white? Needless to say, the other guards' eyes were full of coldness. As for the other people around, after meeting the gaze of the spirit ascension realm guard captain, they all nodded. The guard captain laughed. After so many years, there was finally a hothead. This matter could be solved once and for all. With a fool taking the blame, the teleportation array to the Tianwu world could be completely destroyed. He shouted, How dare you destroy the teleportation array? Capture them! A group of guards stepped forward. Zichen's expression was cold and indifferent as he said, This is simply lawless. The guard captain mocked. How is it lawless to punish the sinners who destroyed the teleportation array? We are punishing evil and eliminating evil. Sir, I don't know him. This matter has nothing to do with me. The spirit ascension realm cultivator shouted in horror. Through this matter, Zichen could see many problems. However, he obviously wouldn't lower himself to the same level as these people. After all, he was in existence who had even killed a 5-star Holy Spirit. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and an invisible pressure spread out. The guards who were coming forward instantly froze as if they were petrified. Such a scene caused their expressions to change drastically, and their eyes revealed horror. Holy Spirit! The captain's voice was trembling. Zichen said in a deep voice, "Gone high, get the hell out here!" He couldn't possibly fuss over this matter with a mere ascending spirit tier cultivator, but he definitely wouldn't let this matter go just like that, either. In that case, he could only look for the master of the Gone High sacred region. For these people to be so bold, they must have received Gone High's silent approval. Zichen's voice exploded like a clap of thunder. At this moment, the face of the captain of the guards from before, he was filled with fear. He knew that he had kicked an iron plate. He had provoked an existence that he should not have provoked. Not to mention him, even Lord Gone High would not dare to provoke such an existence. The spirit ascending tier cultivator who had previously tried his best to distance himself from Zichen was now completely dumbfounded. "Gone High, get out here!" Zichen's voice reverberated throughout the entire planet, reaching every corner of the planet. "Who dares to make a ruckus here?" A majestic voice was heard as the aura of a Holy Spirit spread toward them. A straight Holy Spirit light bridge extended from afar. Gone High stood on the Holy Spirit light bridge, looking extremely confident as he approached from afar. He wore a long robe and stood with his hands behind his back, looking down below. "Who's making a ruckus?" Zichen said. "You're Gone High?" Gone High looked at Zichen, frowned slightly, and asked, "Who are you?" "Zichen." Gone High's eyes flashed slightly, and then a smile immediately appeared on his face. He clasped his fists and said, "I've long known that a neighbor named Zichen came to Gone High Sanctuary, but I've never paid a visit. I didn't expect to see you here." Zichen ignored the other party's goodwill and said indifferently, "Forget about trying to worm your way into being friends with me. Now tell me, what do you have to say about this matter?" Zichen pointed at the teleportation array that was destroyed by the spear, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, I'll still kill you even if you're a 5-star Holy Spirit." Being threatened by Zichen like this, a touch of anger flashed across Gone High's face. He snorted coldly and said, "What a big tone. You're indeed a core disciple of the Holy Thunder Clan. What, you think you can do whatever you want in the outer domain?" Zichen said coldly. "You can try if you don't believe me." A demonic blade appeared in his hand, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Gone High narrowed his eyes. "What, you want to fight me?" "No, I want to kill you." Zichen shook his head. When the voice disappeared, he had already arrived in front of Gone High. Gone High's pupils shrank and he shouted, "Zichen, how dare you!" Buzz! The demonic blade was unsheathed, and a blade arc flew forward. "You're courting death!" Gone High shouted angrily, and a long spear appeared in his hand, which he thrust forward. With a loud bang, a terrifying shockwave spread out in all directions. Swoosh! Just as the shockwave spread out, Zichen quickly approached and slashed down for the second time. In addition to the power of thunder, this attack also contained 2-star Saint power and the power of the demonic bone. This was Zichen's full strength, second only to the lightning controlling technique. At such a close distance, facing Zichen's attack, Gone High's expression changed drastically. He immediately blocked with the long spear in his hand, and at the same time, lightning appeared around his body. That was his defense. Zichen's eyes lit up as he used the Eye of Destruction. With a loud bang, the long spear in Gone High's hand was sent flying. At the same time, the blade continued forward and swept past the defensive light on the surface of Gone High's body. Blood splattered in the air as Gone High's body was thrown far away. A deep blade mark appeared on his chest, and Saint blood gushed out. "Zichen, you!" Gone High looked at Zichen in horror. His opponent was only a 3-star. Who would have thought that in just 2 exchanges, he would be injured? On the surface of his wound, there was residual power of thunder wriggling. His power couldn't be removed. As for the ascending spirit realm cultivators below, they were terrified. They also didn't expect the battle to be over so quickly. The core disciples were known as the strongest disciples of the Holy Thunder clan. Now, it seemed that they lived up to their reputation. Zichen sheathed his blade and looked at Gon Hai indifferently. I need an explanation for this. Gon Hai's expression was extremely ugly. Buzz! Zichen drew his saber for the third time. The saber light flew into the distance and landed on the tallest building in the area. With a boom, the building exploded, and screams could be heard. Zichen knew that it was Gon Hai's property. As the building collapsed, Gon Hai suffered a great loss. In the next moment, Zichen disappeared and returned to the Tianwu world. Compared to a few years ago, this world hadn't changed much. Obviously, not long after he left, the development of this world had encountered obstacles. Zichen stood in the sky above the Tianwu continent. After scanning the surroundings with his spiritual sense, he returned to the core tree city. Jolina! Zichen appeared outside Jolina's room. Jolina, who was frowning, looked up when she heard the voice. Her expression changed. Chapter 34:28. Seeing Zichen walk in, Jolina's eyes lit up and she called out happily, My lord! After Zichen entered the room, he looked at the haggard Jolina and asked, Have you been wronged? You know? Jolina was a little surprised. She shook her head and said, No, I knew that my lord would be fine. Zichen asked, What about Lei Lan? Didn't I tell you to ask her for help? After Lord Lei Lan found out about this, she personally took charge of the Tianwu world. But a few months later, the higher-ups sent her a mission, so she had no choice but to leave. Jolina poured Zichen a cup of water. Zichen took the cup and sat down. He said in surprise, She didn't come back for a mission for 10 years? Jolina sat opposite Zichen. Lord Lei Lan knows about our situation. I believe that she will come here as soon as she comes back. But she hasn't come yet. She must have not returned from the mission. By the way, what was your mission? It actually took you 10 years to complete? Zichen said. I was set up and trapped in a place for 10 years. Jolina asked in surprise. Who would be so bold as to set up a core disciple of the sacred Thunder region? Zichen shook his head and said, It's not good to jump to conclusions. Although he said so, Zichen felt that this matter was related to the two clans that had a grudge against him. But this matter was so important that even the spirit ancestor could not come to a conclusion. Zichen naturally had to be cautious. Zichen then asked about what had happened in the past 10 years. Jolina said, Many clans intended to cooperate with us. Some of them are watching, and some have already left. When some negative news about you came, the number of people watching also decreased. Zichen asked, What about the Jella clan? Jolina said, They are still cooperating with us. But because of the transmission array, progress is slow. Zichen nodded. He had nothing to say to the Jella family, and it was even more impossible for him to blame them. Although the other party had the power to solve the problem of the teleportation portal, and could even do so with a single word, the other party clearly had no obligation to help him. Both sides were just cooperating, and their relationship wasn't so good that they could help each other selflessly. This was a deal, but it was also a benefit. Zichen could tell the difference. Jolina smiled and said, Now that you're back, I believe that all the problems will be solved. Zichen said, I will ask Gon Hai to give an explanation for this matter. Zichen was not worried about handing the world over to Jolina. She was very experienced. Just as he walked out of Jolina's room, the teleportation array in the Gon Hai sanctuary had already been repaired. The first batch of people were teleported to the core city. The efficiency could be said to be extremely fast. Among them, there was a special team that went straight to the place where the manager was. The law enforcement team is here. They want you to go over, sir. A moment later, Jolina came to look for Zichen. Law enforcement team? What do they do? Zichen asked in confusion. Jolina explained. They are in charge of the Order of the Holy Thunder clan. They have great power in the Holy Thunder region. When Zichen heard this, he became more and more puzzled. Why did the law enforcement team come to look for him all of a sudden? However, since his world was going to develop in the periphery, he naturally had to abide by the rules here. So he decided to go and take a look. The law enforcement captain who came was actually a Holy Spirit, which surprised Zichen a little. You are the master of the Tianwu world? The law enforcement captain looked at Zichen. Zichen nodded and said, This is my world. The law enforcement captain said, Then that's right. Come with us. Zichen asked, What's the matter? You will know when you get there. The other party's attitude couldn't be said to be good, but they didn't deliberately target him either. It was completely their usual personality. From this, one could see the status of the law enforcement team in the outer region. Zichen decided to go and take a look. He also needed an explanation regarding the matter of the Ganhai sacred region. He followed the law enforcement team and left. Along the way, the two sides didn't have much interaction. The members of the law enforcement team, even if they were in the spirit ascension realm, were all very arrogant. After teleporting again and again, they arrived at an unknown sacred region. The law enforcement team brought Zichen into a huge high-rise building. Those spirit ascension realm cultivators all stayed outside. The one-star Holy Spirit captain brought Zichen in. The first floor was a hall. It was spacious and huge, and the decorations were very luxurious. After Zichen entered, he saw that there were already several people here. Among them was Ganhai, who he had injured earlier. Lord, Zichen has been brought here. The one-star Holy Spirit cupped his fists. This hall was like an interrogation hall. A middle-aged man sat at the top. He glanced at Zichen and said coldly, Zichen, do you know your crime? Zichen raised his head and looked at the other party. He raised his eyebrows slightly. What crime? The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, You ignored the rules of the Holy Thunder region and secretly attacked Ganhai sacred region. Ganhai advised you, but you didn't listen. You actually injured him? Zichen was slightly startled. He looked back at Ganhai and asked, Is that so? Ganhai ignored Zichen. Instead, he cupped his fist at the middle-aged man and said, Lord is wise. This Zichen is really arrogant. At that time, I advised him to abide by the rules. I didn't expect him to directly launch a sneak attack. In addition, he deliberately damaged one of my properties, causing me to suffer heavy losses. I hope that Lord will seek justice for me. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, Zichen, do you have anything else to say? Zichen said, He blocked the transmission array to my world for 10 years. The middle-aged man snorted coldly and said, Cut the crap. I just want to ask you, do you know your crime? Zichen, who had encountered countless similar incidents along the way, quickly understood what the other party meant. It seemed that darkness was really everywhere. He was schemed against when he was on a mission in the core city. This matter hadn't been resolved yet, but he didn't expect that he would be attacked again in the outer region. No matter whether someone instigated this time or not, he had encountered the dark side. Reason? His countless experiences told him that it was useless. Zichen looked at the middle-aged man and said, Fair and just? The middle-aged man shouted, How dare you! You attacked without permission, destroyed the building, and injured Ganhai. If I don't punish you, how can the Holy Thunder Clan be fair and just? There was a touch of coldness in the hall. Many cold gazes fell on Zichen. Perceiving these malicious gazes, Zichen said indifferently, It seems that you think this matter is handled properly. The middle-aged man said coldly, Fair and just, of course it's proper. Zichen suddenly laughed. This is interesting. I beat the core disciples like dogs in the core city, but I didn't expect to be bullied in the outer region. The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows slightly. Zichen said, I don't know who instigated this, but let me give you a piece of advice. Don't invite trouble to yourself. The expressions of the people around immediately became ugly. The middle-aged man shouted coldly, Are you threatening us? I'm reminding you out of kindness. As for whether you listen or not, it's up to you. Zichen looked back at Ganhai. I don't know what relationship you have with this guy, but before you deem me guilty, you'd better help me solve the problem of the transmission array not being opened for 10 years. Otherwise, I'm not done with you." With that, Zichen turned and walked outside. Before he left, Zichen took out an item and threw it behind him. "If this thing is useless in the Holy Thunder Clan, please throw it away for me." Chapter 34-29. Zichen had already left the hall. When the middle-aged man saw the core token, his expression immediately changed, and he looked at Gonhai. "Gonhai, what is the meaning of this?" the middle-aged man asked in a deep voice. He didn't know that Zichen was a core disciple. Gonhai smiled faintly and said, "Brother Wu Le, don't be impatient. As long as we're in the right, so what if he's a core disciple or a core elder?" Wu Le said, "Right? You stopped him from using the transmission array for 10 years. You call that right?" Gonhai smiled and said, "You don't need to care about this. Just punish him for attacking." Wu Le looked to the side. There were still a few people standing there. They were all his colleagues, but their positions were lower than his. One of them said, "I didn't expect this Zichen to be a core disciple. However, he was indeed wrong in this matter. It has nothing to do with whether he's a core disciple or not. If we let him go just like that, our reputation will definitely be damaged." "That's right. Once this spreads, people will definitely think that our enforcement team is afraid of core disciples." Another person said, "Our enforcement team and their core disciples have always minded their own business. No matter how lawless they are in the core area, they can't come to the outer area." Wu Le waved his hand and said, "Let me think about it first. As for Zichen's punishment, we'll discuss it later." Everyone nodded and left one after another. After everyone left, Wu Le's expression gradually darkened. "What do you think about this matter?" Wu Le suddenly asked. "It's obvious that Gonhai has been instructed to target this core disciple." A voice came from the darkness. "They want to use Milord's position to punish the other party. And some people on your side have been bribed." Wu Le asked again, "What do you think I should do? If you participate, you'll definitely offend Zichen. As for how much benefits you'll get, it's hard to say. We'll have to pay the price of targeting Zichen, a core disciple. I think that before that, you should investigate what kind of price you'll have to pay." Hearing the voice in the dark, Wu Le nodded. To be able to sit in this position, he naturally knew about the Holy Thunder Clan. If one wanted to become a core disciple, not only did they need to have potential, they also needed the power behind them. He had no idea who Zichen was. How did such a person become a core disciple? Right now, it was obvious that the two factions were fighting. At this time, choosing a side randomly would be fine if they were right, but what if they were wrong? The consequences were simply unimaginable. After pondering for a moment, Wu Le said in a deep voice, "Since that's the case, you should investigate first. Find out who this Zichen is. Why did he build a city in the periphery? Could it be that the core area can't accommodate him?" "Yes." The voice in the dark disappeared. Zichen returned to his own world with an ugly expression on his face. If this matter had happened in a core city, he could have solved it through a battle. Whoever was against him, he would beat them up until they no longer dared to play any tricks. However, there were many rules in the outer regions, which made him feel restricted. He couldn't fight either. Not to mention wasting his energy, it wasn't very useful. In fact, Zichen also knew that there must be other forces behind Gonhai. Otherwise, how could Gonhai dare to go against him, a core disciple? At this moment, Jolina came to inform Zichen that the teleportation array had been activated normally. Yahung from the Jiare clan wanted to see him. Zichen thought for a moment and said, "Tell Yahung that I just came back from a mission and am tired. Ask him to come back later." At this moment, Zichen was vexed. Naturally, he wouldn't see anyone. Jolina nodded and left. Zichen wasn't in a hurry to return to the core city. He was thinking about who was targeting him. How should he resolve this situation? This was the first time he encountered something that couldn't be solved by force. After coming to the Holy Thunder region, he only offended 2 clans directly. One was the Hu clan and the other was the Xian clan. Which clan was behind the previous mission? And which force was behind Gone High? Suddenly, Zichen thought of the bloodline ancestor. After all, he had beaten up the bloodline ancestor twice. Was it instructed by him? But if it was instructed by the bloodline ancestor, why did the spirit ancestor protect him for 10 years? And as the old ancestor of the Holy Thunder clan, how noble was his status? Why would he be so bored to deal with him? Suddenly, Zichen thought of a solution, and his eyes lit up. Although he didn't know which clan was targeting him, it must be related to these 2 clans. Outside, he couldn't do anything due to the rules. But in the core city, he could do a lot of things. After thinking of a solution, Zichen decided to go to the core city immediately. Aren't you sabotaging? Then I'll let you see what sabotage is. If it's you who did it, then this is a lesson. Even if it's not you, it's a warning to others. Although he didn't have the core token, Zichen's identity was still there. It wasn't difficult to enter the core city. Then, Zichen went to find Grace. After seeing Zichen, she was very surprised. You're finally back. It's been 10 years. If you didn't come back, I was really worried that something had happened to you. Zichen said. I was lucky. I almost couldn't come back. Grace looked at Zichen in confusion. Zichen said. I was schemed against and trapped in a place for 10 years. Grace's expression changed. Zichen said again. I'm here to ask you for some information. What information? Information about the core disciple quota of the Hu clan and the Xian clan. I want those who are below the 5th realm and currently live in the core city. What do you want this information for? Grace was more and more confused. Although I don't know who is targeting me, it must be related to these 2 clans. I want them to pay a price. It can also serve as a warning to others. After all, Zichen's world needed to develop steadily. Therefore, he had to deal with this matter once and for all. If he suppressed those core disciples here until they couldn't raise their heads, it would be much easier for the outside world. At the very least, they wouldn't dare to attack his world. This wasn't difficult for Grace. After all, she was in charge of distributing resources and was very familiar with everyone. If Zichen could really bring some trouble to these 2 clans, it would be a good thing for the Grace clan. Soon, Zichen got the information and walked toward his first target. Chapter 3430. The Earth-ranked room was considered the lowest-ranked room for the core disciples in the core city. Zichen stood outside room 106 and deliberately triggered the restriction. Previously, he had asked Grace and learned that Hu Lei was here. Who's outside? An indifferent voice came from outside. Then, the door opened and Hu Lei saw Zichen. His face immediately changed. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Zichen said loudly. Hu Lei's face darkened. Are you crazy? Zichen raised his voice again. Hu Lei of the Hu clan, as a core disciple, do you dare to accept my challenge? His voice was loud enough for many people to hear. As for the many core disciples, after hearing the word challenge, one by one, they opened their doors and looked outside curiously. You idiot, are you sick? Why should I fight with you? Hu Lei's face showed anger. Haha, Hu Lei of the Hu clan doesn't dare to accept my challenge. I know you're a 3-star, so I won't bully you. I'll only use my 2-star cultivation to fight with you. If you win, my Thunder-ranked room 23 will be yours. If you lose, I won't chase you out. You just have to give me half of your resources as a core disciple. Zichen laughed exaggeratedly. His voice became louder and attracted more people's attention. The city lord was always paying attention to the movements in the core city. At this moment, many people were gathering in one place. It was impossible not to be noticed. This Zichen hasn't returned for 10 years. What is he doing now that he's back? The city lord frowned. This little guy has some tricks up his sleeve. He deliberately angered Hu Lei. Maybe it's related to the mission. The commander who was playing chess with the city lord said. The city lord said, Now that you mention it, I remember that the spirit ancestor has returned. I heard that he sent people to investigate something. The commander smiled. Then we don't have to worry about it. Next, I want to see what this Sichin wants to do. 2-star against 3-star. The loser will get a thunder-ranked room. This is a good deal. Isn't that so? Furthermore, there's almost no price to pay. What are those resources? How can they be compared to the permanent right to use the Thunder Room? Hulei, you're in luck. Just as Hulei's expression turned extremely ugly, the other core disciples around him started to speak with mocking expressions on their faces. They naturally knew about Sichin. Perhaps it could be said that in recent years, Sichin was definitely the one who received the most attention amongst the core disciples. Lady had directly used one of the slots to invite Hu back. Furthermore, he had defeated Hu in the first battle. If it weren't for the commander appearing in time, Hu might have died then. The second battle was with Xianqingye. A 2-star against a 3-star, and it was still a complete victory. Although they didn't know why Sichin, who had disappeared for a few years, wanted to challenge Hulei, they were happy to add fuel to the fire. Hearing the discussions around him, Hulei's expression turned even uglier. Sichin said, "What? You don't even dare to fight a 3-star against a 2-star? I say, aren't you a little too cowardly? Or is it that everyone in the Hu clan is like this?" "Shut up!" Hulei angrily rebuked. Laughter rang out from the surroundings. The other core disciples naturally didn't mind watching the show. "You don't even dare to suppress him with a higher cultivation base. There's no one else in the Hu clan. Isn't that right? If this were to spread out, it would really be a disgrace to the Hu clan's old ancestor." "What kind of person is the Hu clan's old ancestor?" "The Hu clan also has many powerful core disciples. I didn't expect this generation to be so cowardly." Listening to the deliberate ridicule, Hulei was burning with anger. However, if he were to fight against Sichin, he really didn't have the confidence to win. Sichin curled his lips. "How can there be such a cowardly trash like you in the sacred Thunder region? Speaking of which, how did you become a core disciple? Could it be that your Hu clan's people secretly took the back door and squeezed out other potential core disciples who should have become core disciples?" Although this kind of operation was known to everyone, saying it out loud was very hurtful. Hulei angrily rebuked without hesitation. "Don't talk nonsense here. This kind of lousy provocation is useless against me. Don't you want to fight? I'll accompany you to the end," Sichin said. "Then it's settled. If you win, the Thunder Room will be yours. If you lose, half of your resources will be given to me." Hulei waved his hand and said, "No need. I only fight. I never bet with others." Boos came from all around. Sichin shook his head and said, "If that's the case, then I won't fight." "Ah?" Hulei was stunned. There was such a good thing? Sichin turned around and said, "I'll have to trouble friends to spread today's matter. A dignified core disciple of the Hu clan doesn't even dare to challenge. Brother Sichin, don't worry. This matter will spread throughout the sacred Thunder region in less than half a day." A voice immediately came from afar. "That's right. This time, the Hu clan has lost so much face. It has damaged the reputation of our Holy Thunder clan and even lost the face of our core disciples. This matter should be known by the world and remembered," another person said. The others were also very cooperative. They were all willing to make the Hu clan unhappy at this time. At the same time, they were establishing a preliminary relationship with Sichin. "Good. I'll fight you," Hulei said angrily. "If you want to bet, then bet big. I'll take out all my resources." "What else can you take out?" Boos came from the crowd again. A dignified Thunder Room was enough for those resources. Sichin said, "If you win, I'll give you whatever you want. Even if it's Thunder Leave." Hulei's eyes lit up. "Really?" Sichin said with a smile. "I guarantee in the name of Thunder Earth Saint. If I don't keep my word, then I'll have Thunder Earth Saint personally go to the Hu clan to apologize." When the surrounding core disciples heard this, their faces all changed. At this moment, the way they looked at Sichin changed. In the city lord's mansion, the city lord smiled and said, "Looks like this little guy is familiar with this." The commander nodded and said, "He probably feels the pressure, or maybe he wants to save some trouble." Zichen's words were completely borrowing the momentum. In the eyes of the outer region, it might be useless. But in the eyes of these core disciples, it was obviously different. When Grace heard this, her expression also changed. At this moment, for the first time, she felt some dissatisfaction with the way her family acted. Because once Zichen borrowed the momentum of Thunder Earth Saint, there would be many forces that would want to extend an olive branch. Grace was very clear that Zichen really wanted to do something in the Thunder Clan this time. And in this case, Zichen would come in contact with many forces. The original advantage of the Jella family to contact Zichen first would be gone. Hulei was deliberately provoked by Zichen. He had no choice but to accept the challenge. He even took out all the resources that he had distributed to the core disciples this time. After the battle was approved, it began. The space where the two were was separated. All the core disciples stood outside the space to watch the battle. The battle began. Hulei shouted and launched a powerful attack. Facing Zichen, he didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. Countless lightning forces surged and thunder rumbled, dazzling and dazzling. Golden light pierced through the lightning. That was Zichen's power. After about 10 breaths of time, Zichen, who had used 2 stars of strength, knocked Hulei to the ground and ended the battle. Standing in front of the fallen Hulei, Zichen stretched out his hand and said, "Give it to me." Hulei's face was depressed and annoyed. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have opened the door. Chapter 34-31. As Zichen's voice fell, the core disciples all turned their heads and looked at a young man. At this moment, the other party's face was full of ridicule. But as everyone looked at him, the smile on his face froze. At this moment, he had a bad feeling in his heart. Zichen's gaze followed everyone's gaze and fell on the young man. "You are Xian Mingyan? I challenge you to a 2-star fight against a 3-star. Xian Mingyan's face immediately turned cold. "Why should I accept your challenge?" In fact, at this moment, he had the urge to turn around and leave, but he stayed for the sake of his face. Zichen said, "Are you afraid? Then I won't embarrass you. Now go to the outer region and tell the world that the Xian family is a coward." Xian Mingyan's eyes flashed with killing intent. "Zichen, you are courting death," Zichen said coldly. "Whether I am courting death or not, we will know in a battle." The others around were interested, so they deliberately ridiculed him again. Xian Mingyan clearly knew that this was a provocation, but he had to agree because the reputation of the family must be maintained and could not be trampled on by others. Therefore, Xian Mingyan, who had just given out the resources and hadn't refined them, lost them to Zichen just like that. After winning, Zichen looked at the third name and said, "Is Hu Yi here?" A 3-star Holy Spirit who was about to escape was quickly blocked by the crowd. When Hu Yi was blocked, a few people in the crowd left quietly. Because many people had already seen that Zichen seemed to be deliberately targeting these 2 families, and the people on the list might be from those 2 families. As a result, Hu Yi also lost the resources. Immediately afterward, Zichen read the name of the 4th person, but the other party was obviously not there. Someone told him that he was there just now, but he ran away. Therefore, they were very enthusiastic to take Zichen to the room of the 4th person. However, no matter how Zichen targeted him, the person from the Xian family didn't respond at all. Obviously, this 3-star Holy Spirit was avoiding the battle, but it could also be said that he was in seclusion and couldn't hear the sound outside. Next was the 5th and 6th. It was still the same. Standing outside the 6th person's room, Zichen shook his head and said, "This is really boring. I thought that the core disciples of aristocratic families were all people with backbone. I didn't expect that they were all rats." Sounds of agreement could be heard from all around. Everyone had witnessed Zichen's battle prowess. Despite fighting above his level, he still won with ease. Moreover, he had Saint Venerable Thunder Earth behind him. compared to other family forces, Saint Venerable Thunder Earth was naturally stronger. Brother Zichen is right. The disciples of the Hu and Xian families are truly unable to withstand a single blow. They've really lost face for our sacred lightning clan. A young man walked over and cupped his fists. I'm Pei Wenyao from the Pei clan. I'm very excited to see Brother Zichen's prowess today. Why don't we go for a drink? The expressions of some of the core disciples in the crowd changed slightly when they saw Pei Wenyao. The Pei clan he was from was not weaker than the Hu and Xian families. They had a deep foundation and many experts. Pei Wenyao's reputation was also not small. While many people were shocked, they also felt incomparably angry. In this kind of situation where they were on good terms with Zichen, they should have expressed their attitude earlier. However, it wasn't too late now. Immediately, some people expressed their attitude and walked forward. These people were naturally not afraid of the Hu and Xian families, and they even had some conflicts with them. At this moment, they wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to Zichen. During this time, the words they said were naturally to suppress the two families. Humph, you're courting death! At this moment, a cold snort suddenly sounded, followed by a cold chill that swept over from not far away. Sensing this chill, everyone turned their heads and saw a person appear there. Xian Cheng! Seeing that person, many people cried out. They didn't expect that person to be in the core city. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you defeated a few people? Xian Qing walked over, releasing a strong aura that brought a lot of pressure to the people. Zichen looked at Xian Qing, then took out the list and looked at it. His eyes immediately lit up. You're on the list too. I was going to look for you in a few days, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to come forward and be slapped in the face. After hearing Zichen's words, the others' expressions changed. Pei Wenyao, who spoke first, reminded him through voice transmission. Brother Zichen, don't be careless. This Xianqing is a 4-star divine spirit. A smile appeared on the corners of Zichen's mouth as he said, Do you dare to fight with me? If you win, the Thunder Room is yours. If you lose, you have to give me a 4th-grade spiritual talisman. The 4th-grade spiritual talisman was also called the 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman. It was unique to the Thunder Clan and could only be condensed by high-level divine spirits. It was extremely expensive. Last time, when Zichen fought with Hu took out a 3rd-grade talisman when he was defeated. The price of the two talismans was not equal. The Thunder Room was definitely one of the top resources in the Sacred Thunder territory. Okay. Xian Qing agreed immediately, obviously thinking that he would definitely win. The crowd dispersed, and an independent battle space opened up. Zichen released the aura of a 2-star divine spirit. Exclamations came from the crowd. Was Zichen going to fight a 4-star divine spirit with a 2-star divine spirit? Xian Qing, on the other hand, smiled complacently and flew towards Zichen. Before he could get close to Zichen, a strong aura surged out of Zichen's body again. It was 2 thunderballs, revolving around Zichen's body. The people outside were all core disciples and were members of the Holy Thunder Clan. They were very familiar with all the techniques of the Thunder Clan. When they saw the 2 thunder balls of holy power, they exclaimed loudly and were shocked. Holy power manifestation! It's actually holy power manifestation! This is the holy power cultivated after the physical body has reached its limit. Has Zichen's physical body reached its limit? In our Thunder Clan, there are not many physical techniques that can condense holy power. I wonder which one Zichen has mastered? The people exclaimed with envy in their eyes. No matter what kind of technique it was, it would definitely be top-notch. Even their family might not have such top-notch techniques. Zichen, who was a 2-star divine spirit and had a 2-star divine spirit body, might be able to fight Xianqing, who was a 4-star. Looking at the shocked Xianqing, Zichen smiled coldly and said, Let's begin. Zichen rushed forward and punched out with his clenched fist. Holy Thunder Explosion! This was a punch that reached its limit and was full of power. The 2 thunder balls of holy power merged into the fist, making the surface of the fist shine brightly. At the same time, the Holy Spirit power in Zichen's body also merged into the fist. The strong aura spread, and the sealed space began to distort. Chapter 34-32. Zichen's punch was like a huge wave that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Xianqing, who felt the terrifying aura, began to mobilize the power of the four-star sacred spirit around him. But unlike what everyone had imagined, he was not attacking but defending. Sacred lightning shield. Countless streams of sacred spirit power gathered in front of him and then turned into a solid shield. Countless lightning flashed on the shield, and the word, lightning, was engraved in the center. This was the defensive technique of the Holy Thunder clan, which Zichen had not mastered. His fist was blocked by the sacred shield. With a boom, the fist's light exploded. Dazzling light bloomed, and the terrifying lightning drowned the sacred shield. Deafening booms sounded continuously. Under the impact of the terrifying energy, Xianqing began to retreat. Cracks appeared on the sacred shield in front of him. After retreating more than 10 feet, the sacred shield exploded with a boom. The powerful force once again forced Xianqing to retreat. At this moment, he noticed something strange from the corner of his eye. His figure swayed, leaving an afterimage where he was. With a swoosh, the afterimage was split into two. Zichen, who wanted to use the back of his saber to stun his opponent, missed. At this moment, Zichen felt a dangerous gust of wind coming from behind him, and immediately used the 9 flash of holy thunder. Zichen disappeared in an instant. A bolt of lightning flashed past Zichen's back. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the 9 flash of holy thunder collided with the 9 flash of holy thunder. The 2-star Zichen was fighting the 4-star Xianqing. This battle was not like the previous one, which ended quickly. Despite the difference of 2 realms, the battle strength of the two was actually evenly matched. Everyone was shocked. With the battle strength that Zichen displayed, he was definitely one of the best among the core disciples. He was vaguely comparable to those terrifying existences. Fortunately, Brother Zichen is only at the 2-star realm. If he was at the 3-star realm, Xianqing would probably cry for his parents. Outside the battle space, Pei Wenao said with a smile. The sarcasm in his words could not be more obvious. A burst of laughter came from the crowd. That's not true. Realms are always the most fundamental existence. There aren't so many hypothetical existences. Zichen is only at the 2-star realm, which only proves that his strength is insufficient. Someone else in the crowd spoke up. It was obvious that they were on good terms with Xianqing. Pei Wenao smiled faintly and said, "At this point, I can only say so. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing?" Quite a few people laughed out loud in tandem. The person who spoke for Xianqing also didn't want to be outdone. Usually, only people who don't have any strength will make assumptions. While they were arguing outside, Xianqing couldn't take down Zichen after a long time. He couldn't help but show anger on his face. Holy Thunder Sword. He formed a hand seal and pointed at the sky. The void distorted as a lightning sword that seemed to have come from beyond the heavens descended from the heavens, bringing with it a tyrannical aura. This was the famous and powerful technique of the Holy Thunder clan. Zichen, who felt the pressure, immediately unsheathed the demonic saber that had never been unsheathed. The saber light rose against the sky and collided with the lightning sword. With a boom, it exploded. The moment the lightning sword was destroyed, Xianqing's hand seal changed again. The sky shook, and another palm fell from the sky. The demonic saber that had just been sheathed was unsheathed again. In the space of the battlefield, the roaring sounds continued. The two of them fought back and forth, engaged in a fierce battle. If the difference in realms between the two wasn't taken into account, then this battle could be said to be brilliant beyond compare. Zichen displayed powerful combat strength, while Xianqing displayed the standard of a 4-star core disciple. All kinds of Thunder Clan battle techniques emerged one after another, and their comprehension was extremely profound. Just from the number of battle techniques, Xianqing's comprehension was much greater than that of Zichen's. However, if realms were taken into account in this brilliant battle, it would be awkward no matter how one looked at it. A 4-star core disciple of the Holy Thunder clan actually couldn't defeat a 2-star Zichen. It seems that they have to wait for both sides to exhaust their strength. Someone looked at this evenly matched battle and made such a conclusion. Exhaust their strength? Don't joke. Xianqing is a 4-star. In terms of strength, he's several times stronger than Zichen. Even if Zichen exhausts his strength twice, he can forget about exhausting Xianqing's strength. Yan Yong, who had been speaking up for Xianqing, said again. Although Yang Yong's words were unpleasant, one had to admit that it was common sense. Under normal circumstances, a 2-star's strength was far from a 4-star's. Therefore, no one refuted him. At this moment, Zichen suddenly said, "All right, it's time to end it." As his voice fell, he rushed forward. His whole body glowed as he mobilized his strongest strength. Xianqing also shouted angrily and gathered all his strength for the final attack. Yan Yong looked at Zichen and said disdainfully, "Mobilizing your full strength like this will only make you lose faster. This kind of idiotic fighting style is only suitable for bullying those of a lower level. You speak as if Xianqing didn't bully anyone." Pei Wenyao smiled disdainfully. "Besides, it's not certain who will win." As they spoke, the two of them made contact. Zichen's eyes flashed. Eye of destruction. Xianqing's attack was disorderly for a moment, as if there was a flaw. He unsheathed his demonic saber and rushed forward. Swoosh! Xianqing's attack dissipated instantly. The saber light landed on his body, and his defense distorted several times before collapsing. The next moment, he coughed up blood and flew backward. The unforeseen event that occurred in an instant caused everyone to be stunned. They didn't understand exactly what was going on. Looking at Xianqing again, there was an extremely deep saber mark on his body. He was severely injured. How is this possible? Yan Yong, who had been looking down on Zichen and even deliberately mocking Zichen, was stunned. Zichen stood there, looked at Xianqing, and said indifferently, "You lost!" Xianqing stood up, his face ashen. His gaze moved away from Zichen and looked at the outside world. He saw a lot of mockery, and anger immediately burned in his heart. "No, I didn't lose!" he shouted loudly, his eyes filled with resentment. Zichen frowned slightly. "You can't afford to lose?" "I didn't lose." "How can you say that I lost?" Xianqing, who was bleeding, took a step forward. His body swayed, and he almost fell. "You said you didn't lose? Are you saying you'll only lose if you die?" Zichen's voice turned cold. Whoosh! A talisman appeared in Xianqing's hand. It was the Holy Thunder Talisman. 4 lines of light flickered on it, constantly creating ripples. "It's a 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman!" Seeing this scene, cries of alarm could be heard from the crowd. When Zichen saw the 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman, a cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "What are you trying to do? It's not too late to say that I lost if you can block its attack," Xianqing said coldly. A 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman could only be condensed by a 6-star Sacred Spirit. The attack contained in it was life-threatening to a 4-star Sacred Spirit. Once Xianqing activated the Holy Thunder Talisman, the 2-star Zichen would definitely die. Reprimands came from the crowd. Zichen said coldly, "Since you can't afford to lose, don't blame me for being rude. I don't want the same thing to happen a 3rd time." Zichen took a step forward, and the originally weak aura on his body became stronger once again. Chapter 34-33. Zichen, who had unleashed the full power of 3 stars, truly had the intention to kill. Boundless killing intent surged wildly towards the injured Xianqing. Xianqing couldn't help but shudder when he felt the killing intent. He, who had lost his mind earlier, gradually regained his senses. Outside the battlefield, cries of surprise could be heard. The 2-star Zichen had actually become a 3-star. Everyone knew that Zichen hadn't been in the Holy Thunder clan for long. Many people hadn't even broken through to the 1-star realm, but Zichen had actually gone from 1-star to 3-star. Zichen could heavily injure Xianqing with just 2-star power. Once he used 3-star power, Xianqing would definitely die. Enough! Suddenly, a cold voice came from the sky. The Grand Commander appeared. He looked at Xianqing and said coldly, "Don't you think it's embarrassing enough?" Xianqing lowered his head. He didn't dare to activate the 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman in his hand. The surging aura around Zichen retracted as he walked towards Xianqing. When he was in front of Xianqing, Zichen stretched out his hand and said indifferently, "Hand it over." Xianqing's face was gloomy, but he didn't dare to flare up. Zichen snatched the 4th-grade Holy Thunder Talisman and said, "Becoming a core disciple is important, but what's more important is one's character. The Hu clan and Xian clan are so despicable even in a battle in front of everyone. How dark are your actions behind the scenes? No wonder your 2 clans have trash who don't dare to accept the challenge. So what if you obtained the core disciple position through shady means? So what if you have countless resources? Trash will always be trash." Zichen turned around and looked at the crowd. "I'll have to trouble you all to help me pass the message. In the coming days, I will frequently spar with the Xian and Hu clans in a friendly manner. Based on the principle of not doing things more than 3 times, I guarantee that I will end your lives before you have any evil intentions." "Great!" Cheers immediately came from the crowd. Pei Wenyao looked at Yang Yong and said, "You didn't like Zichen earlier. Why don't you go challenge him now?" Yang Yong coldly snorted, turned around, and left. He was really afraid that Zichen would pester him. Not only would he lose face, but his family's reputation would also be damaged. Take this incident as an example. The Hu and Xian clans would become laughingstocks for a long time to come. After the battle ended, Zichen left the battlefield. He didn't express any gratitude for the appearance of the Grand Commander. Because the other party was here to save Xianqing, not him. If they really wanted to stop him, they would have appeared a long time ago, and not after he revealed his 3-star strength. Zichen walked out of the battlefield and said to the crowd, "Today's harvest is not small. Thank you for your support. If you have time, let's go for a drink?" "That's exactly what I was thinking." Pei Wenyao smiled and walked over. "Brother Zichen showed us a very exciting battle today. How can we let you spend money? Let me be the host." Following that, many people walked forward. Grace stood behind the crowd and looked at Zichen, who was like the moon surrounded by stars. "My lord, I didn't get any information." A voice suddenly sounded in Wu Li's room. "How is that possible?" Wu Li was stunned and felt that it was very unbelievable. With his intelligence network, he couldn't get any information about Zichen. He stood up and looked behind him. A black-robed man appeared and said respectfully, "Information about Zichen seems to have been deliberately blocked. No one knows how he joined the core forces, and why Gonhai dared to target a core disciple, and who ordered him to do so." Wu Li's expression became serious. "If we use special channels, we should be able to find some clues." The black-robed man nodded and said, "The matter is urgent. Without asking for your permission, I used those channels and found out something unbelievable." "What is it?" Wu Li asked. "When Zichen went to Luo City, he took a Holy Venerate token." "What?" Hearing the black-robed man's words, Wu Li's expression changed drastically. "Holy Venerate?" Holy Venerate tokens were people who held real power in the Sacred Thunder region, and they were absolute powerhouses. In the Sacred Thunder region, there were only a few Holy Venerates. How did Zichen get his Holy Venerate token? Wu Li looked at the core token in his hand again and felt that it was extremely troublesome. "What do you think?" Wu Li looked at the black-robed man. The black-robed man said, "My lord, don't you know the core disciples? I think it's necessary to find out about this through them. Core disciples should know each other very well." "You think it's necessary?" "Whether it's necessary or not, we'll know when my lord brings back the news." In the outer region, in a private room of a restaurant, Pei Wenyao looked at Wu Li and asked curiously, "It's rare for you to come looking for me. What's the matter?" Wu Li said, "I want to find out about someone from you. I thought you were still in the core city and would take some time to come back. Pei Wenliao smiled and said, What a coincidence. I have something to do. Tell me, who are you looking for? Wu Le asked. Do you know that there's a core disciple called Zichen? Zichen. Pei Wenliao was slightly stunned. Why are you looking for him? You know him? Wu Le was very surprised. After all, there were many core disciples in the Holy Thunder clan. It was impossible for everyone to know him. Wu Le smiled and said, Now in the core city, there aren't many who don't know Zichen. I came back this time because Zichen made a big commotion in the core city. What commotion? Wu Le asked. He blocked all the core disciples below 4-star from the Hu and Xian clans in their rooms. They didn't dare to come out at all. Speaking of this matter, Pei Wenliao could not hide the smile on his face. These days, the two families had really become a big joke. Who is he exactly? How dare he offend two big clans at the same time? Wu Li's expression became solemn. No one knows. He was brought back by the Holy Venerate Lady. He got the core disciple spot without going through any assessment. Wu Li's expression changed drastically. The title of the Holy Venerate was enough to make him lose his mind. Can you tell me more about Zichen? Wu Li's voice was trembling. Very quickly he found out about Zichen from Pei Wenliao, causing his expression to turn incomparably ugly. These things weren't considered secrets to the core disciples. However, to the people from the outer region, it was a secret. Ganhai dared to go against Zichen. Other than the fact that he had the support of other forces, the bigger reason was that he didn't know anything about Zichen. Pei Wenliao left. Wu Le stood up. His expression was still ugly, and there was still fear in his heart. He had wasted a favor, but in exchange for information about Zichen, indirectly saving his life. It was really worth it. Chapter 34-34. Zichen played with the core disciple token in his hand and looked at Wu Le. The token emitted a faint lightning glow. This token represented the supreme status of the Holy Thunder clan. Wu Le stood there with his head lowered. He didn't dare to look at Zichen. At this moment, he didn't know how many times he had scolded Ganhai in his heart. This guy was courting death. Not only did he offend Zichen, he even wanted to drag him down with him. Luckily, he restrained himself last time and didn't cause a disaster. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. The matter has been investigated. Ganhai disregarded the rules and forcefully obstructed the development of the Tianwu world. He has already violated the rules of the Holy Thunder clan. Wu Li's head was still lowered. He said apologetically, I misunderstood you last time. I hope you can forgive me and not be calculative with me. Zichen didn't know why Wu Li's attitude had changed. However, he really couldn't do anything about Wu Le. He was a core disciple and had great authority. However, he couldn't interfere with the management of the outer region. If Wu Le didn't cooperate and wanted to punish him, he couldn't do anything. Of course, if Zichen went all out, as a core disciple, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone. However, if that happened, it would obviously be disadvantageous to the development of his world. Zichen nodded and said, Since the truth has been found out, I'll have to trouble you to do things impartially. Of course, of course. Wu Le nodded repeatedly. Although he was a 5-star Holy Spirit and had a high status in this region, if he didn't have other opportunities, 5-star was the limit. As for Zichen, he still had great potential in the future. Pei Wenliao didn't brush him off. That favor was worth it. Pei Wenliao told him almost everything he knew about Zichen. In the end, Pei Wenliao said, Everyone is discussing that Zichen might become an extreme core disciple in the future. For most people in the Holy Thunder clan, the extreme core disciple was an unfamiliar term. They only knew that the core disciple had great authority and a noble status. However, Wu Le knew very well what the extreme core disciple meant. In the entire Holy Thunder region, there were almost no core disciples in the outer region. As their realm increased, they would gradually change the world. As for the extreme core, there was not a single one. It was also because of Pei Wenyao's last words that Wu Le finally made up his mind. Wu Li's respect was out of Zichen's expectations. This would save him a lot of time and avoid a lot of trouble. After a simple conversation, Wu Le took his leave. Since he was not going to deal with Zichen, he had to deal with the teleportation array. This matter wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small one either. If things were handled according to the rules, then it would be easy to resolve. Ganhai was guilty and had to be punished. But now, Ganhai had the help of other forces. Although Wu Le didn't know which force it was definitely a powerful force that could at least contend with Zichen. What should we do now? Wu Le frowned and pondered. The voice in the dark suddenly said, Ganhai is naturally at fault here, but Zichen has also violated the rules. In a situation where both sides are at fault, there is no need to completely offend one of them. I think we should call Ganhai over and give him some appropriate punishment and compensation. That way, he won't be hurt too badly. Wu Le nodded. In fact, he had planned to do so. When he went to see Zichen today, the other party seemed to only want an explanation. His words didn't seem to have any intention of killing Ganhai. Moreover, he had investigated and found that Ganhai Sanctuary lost at least 10 years of income from that slash. Someone, go call Ganhai over! Wu Le made up his mind. Soon, Ganhai came to the hall and said to Wu Le, Wu Le, it seems that you have thought it through. Wu Le frowned slightly. Some people followed in. They were the people who spoke for Ganhai a few days ago. They were also Wu Li's subordinates. This matter needs to be discussed carefully. We must give Zichen a reasonable punishment. Seeing Wu Le frown, one of them immediately said, That's right. Zichen is really too arrogant this time. If he is not punished, who will abide by the rules of the Outland in the future? Someone else spoke. Punish Zichen? Wu Le looked at them. Who told you to punish Zichen? They were all stunned. The person who spoke first said, Zichen broke the rules. If we don't punish Zichen, are we going to punish Ganhai who lost a lot? Yes, sir. If this matter is not handled well, it will greatly affect the reputation of the Outland. Hearing their words, Ganhai's face gradually turned ugly. Ganhai said in a low voice, Wu Le, what do you mean? Wu Li's gaze quickly swept across them. He looked at Ganhai and said in a low voice, I have investigated this matter. Ganhai, you were the one who first blocked the teleportation formation to Zichen's world for 10 years. Zichen attacked you because you ordered your subordinates to deliberately destroy the teleportation formation and slander Zichen. If we really want to investigate, this matter is your responsibility. The others were stunned. They didn't expect Wu Le to say this. Obviously, he was standing on Zichen's side. I say, Wu Le, are you stupid? Ganhai stared at Wu Le and said unhappily, Is your brain damaged? You dare to punish me. Do you know the consequences? Do you still want to be in this position? Wu Li's face turned cold. Are you threatening me? Sir, please reconsider. Yes, sir. This matter is obviously Zichen's fault. The people standing on both sides tried to persuade him. Wu Le waved his hand and said, This matter has been decided. Ganhai is guilty. As for the crime, I couldn't tell. Wu Le, you are really an idiot. Ganhai looked at Wu Le and said disdainfully, Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for not playing with you. You can forget about staying in this position from now on. Ganhai turned and walked out confidently. Do you really think you are so great? Do you think you are someone important? Now you just have to wait patiently for your appointment to be removed. Ganhai, wait. The people who followed Ganhai and glanced at Wu Le and turned to chase after Ganhai. If Wu Le was removed from his position, they would need to appoint another person. They felt that this was an opportunity. Wu Le looked at the people who left and remained silent. After returning to his own world, Ganhai was still very proud. With a powerful backer behind him, he really didn't care about a mere Wu Le. The reason why he went to look for him previously was to give Wu Le a chance. He didn't expect that idiot to not cherish it. Ganhai, who was feeling proud in his room, didn't wait for the order to remove Wu Le from his position. He waited for another piece of news. It was a crime. It was about him. It came from the core region. Chapter 34-35. What did you say? Ganhai's eyes were fixed on the person who had come. Are you King mistaken? I'm just a star area lord in the outer region. How could I kill a core disciple? The man from the core area said coldly. You colluded with the Julin force in the Wuju star area to kill core disciple Zichin. The evidence is conclusive. How can you deny it? Men, arrest him! Immediately, a member of the core law enforcement team stepped forward and grabbed Ganhai. There must be a mistake. There must be a mistake. I don't know Zichen. How could I kill him? Ganhai screamed in horror. You don't know him. How could you deliberately stop Zichen's world from developing for 10 years? The man's voice was cold. Ganhai wanted to say something, but he found that his voice was suppressed. He couldn't say a word. No, I'm innocent. I'm innocent! Ganhai's face immediately became ferocious. A powerful aura began to surge. He obviously couldn't be caught. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Ganhai was a 5-star divine spirit. He was extremely powerful. However, the moment his aura moved slightly, an even more powerful force appeared from the side and forcefully invaded Ganhai's body. Sensing this force, Ganhai's face showed a touch of horror. The bodyguard beside him, who looked like a subordinate, was actually a 6-star divine spirit. The terrified Ganhai's face showed despair. The news that Ganhai was taken away by the core area quickly spread in the same region. At the same time, his crimes were also spread. Many people were in an uproar because he plotted to kill a core disciple. Wu Le, who received the news, let out a sigh. It seems that he was pushed out by those people as a scapegoat. At the same time, Wu Le was very glad that he had used a favor to obtain all the information about Zichin. Otherwise, he would have suffered a great loss this time. As for those people who were bought by Ganhai, they were all on tenterhooks. They were afraid that someone would come to cause trouble. After all, they didn't have access to any information from the outside world, and they were utterly unaware of the relationship between Zichin and those powers. Yaheng still didn't see Zichin. He only communicated with Jolina. Jolina could clearly feel the change in Yaheng's attitude. Moreover, over the past few days, more and more forces had come. It was obvious that they wanted to build a good relationship with him. They were even willing to lose some benefits. Zichin had remained in the outer realm and had never returned to the core area. Naturally, the teleportation array had been working well for the past few days, and it hadn't broken down again. He already knew what had happened in the Ganhai sacred region. It seemed that this was the final result of the spirit ancestors' investigation. Although he knew that Ganhai was just a scapegoat, Zichin still felt that this was an explanation. He had even indirectly given him a huge gift. The teleportation array lit up, causing ripples to spread out. Grace walked out of the teleportation array. Why are you here? Seeing Grace standing outside the door, Zichin was a little surprised. Grace said, regarding your matter, the others deliberately avoided it, so I naturally came. Oh, what's the matter? Zichin gestured for Grace to sit first. The results of the investigation are out. They want you to go back and see if you're satisfied with the results. Grace said. Of course, it's just a process. Zichin nodded and said, now? Yes. On the same day, the two returned to the core city. Grace led him into an interrogation hall. When they entered, there were still traces of blood on the ground that hadn't dried yet. Powerful fluctuations surged in the blood. That was sacred blood. Although it was useless to Zichin, to other low-level existences, this sacred blood was a supreme treasure. In fact, in some low-level worlds, the sacred blood might even undergo some sort of mutation, some sort of unimaginable change. Zichin, who was slightly absent-minded, suddenly thought of something. His eyes couldn't help but light up. This was a good thing for the development of the world. This is the evidence we've obtained this time. Please take a look. A person in charge walked over with a booklet in his hand. On it was recorded the evidence of Gone High and Insi's collusion. Zichen only took a rough look. How could a layman like him see the inside door? Moreover, he knew very well that Gone High was just a scapegoat. Zichen handed the booklet to the person in charge and said, "What do you think of this matter?" The person in charge said, "Due to the great impact this matter has had on you, after discussion, we've decided to leave Gone High sanctuary to you after executing him. All of Gone High's properties will be yours." Zichen said, "After a person dies, can the world be left behind?" The person in charge nodded. "It's possible through a secret method." The matter was settled like this. Zichen didn't refuse. In fact, when he came over, he had already guessed that the other party would make such an arrangement. Gone High's death was his own fault. Zichen wouldn't let him go just because he was a scapegoat. Moreover, in this matter, he didn't have the final say. Obviously, this was arranged by the spirit ancestor. He had to find the murderer, so the murderer had appeared. After returning to the Tianwu world, Zichen began to think about the development of the world. Previously, the idea that flashed through his mind was to sell things like sacred blood. If a city wanted to prosper, the most important thing wasn't the strong, but the gathering of low-level people. The more people there were, the more lively and prosperous it would be. Sacred blood was useless to him, but to low-level existences, it was really good stuff. Zichen was considering whether he should catch a few holy-level beasts and let them bleed here to attract people. 2 days later, Wulu of the law enforcement team invited Zichen to Gone High Sanctuary to watch the execution of Gone High, but Zichen refused. Colluding with other forces to kill a core disciple was a big deal in the Sacred Thunder region. At the same time, it was also a big crime. Naturally, it couldn't be handled quietly. On the same day, Gone High was executed and punished under the eyes of everyone. Zichen stayed in his room, thinking about how to strengthen the Tianwu world. Jolina, who went to visit, walked into the room. Zichen looked up at her. Jolina's face didn't look too good. "What happened?" Zichen asked. Jolina hesitated for a moment and said, "Before Gone High died, he cursed and said that he was wrong. How could he target a core disciple? He said that someone had taken a fancy to his starfield and set up a trap to target him." Zichen smiled when he heard this. "What happened in the end?" Jolina said. "The law enforcement team read out his crimes on the spot and then killed Gone High." Zichen said, "In that case, Gone High's words left some bad impressions? More than some? A lot. Now, people outside are talking about whether Sir is really so cruel. Some people have even started to evacuate." Jolina said, "According to preliminary estimates, Gone High Sanctuary's popularity will lose at least 20% because of these words." Whether it was Jolina or Zichen, they were extremely shrewd people. Naturally, they could see the intention of this. There were still some people in the dark who didn't want him to smoothly obtain Gone High Sanctuary. Now that nearly 20% of the popularity has been lost, there will inevitably be some people who will make some small moves, and the popularity will continue to decline. In the end, it would be very good if half of the popularity, or 40%, was left. Maybe this prosperous sanctuary will be completely ruined in a short time. This is another war. There is no smoke, no life and death, but it is more cruel and involves more interests. But so far, Zichen still doesn't know who the enemy is. I'm not good at this matter. Now I give you all the authority to deal with this matter." Zichen looked at Jolina and said, "Do everything you can to maintain the popularity first. Or do you have any plans?" Jolina said, "I want to contact some of the forces in Gone High Sanctuary first. As long as they don't make any big moves and don't make any small moves, the loss of popularity is only temporary." Zichen nodded and said, "Okay, it's all up to you." Zichen walked out. "Where is Sir going?" Chapter 34-36. Jolina didn't quite understand what Zichen meant. Why was he talking about ideals with some people with bad intentions? Was he trying to influence them? Jolene dismissed the thought as soon as it appeared. She knew Zichen quite well. She could tell from Zichen's tone that someone was going to be in trouble. Zichen returned to the core city. He took out the name list and started to search house by house. His voice was very loud, and he purposely emitted sound waves. He almost disrupted the peace in the residential area. However, many core disciples didn't care. They could watch a good show and watch their opponents suffer. They were totally overjoyed. He searched all the way. Those 3-star Holy Spirits didn't even dare to open their doors. No matter how much Zichen mocked them, they all pretended to be in seclusion. After looking at the name list, Zichen was speechless. Looks like I can only look for 4-star Holy Spirits. However, he had already defeated a 4-star Holy Spirit last time. Everyone knew how powerful he was, but still, no one responded to him. Hu Deli, you're a 4-star Holy Spirit, but you don't dare to accept the challenge of a 3-star Holy Spirit. You're really a coward. How about this? I'll fight you with a 2-star Holy Spirit. Zichen stood outside Hu Deli's room. His voice spread out. Some core disciples in the distance cooperated well and started to mock him. Seeing that there was no response from the room, Zichen said, "You're really good at pretending. How about this? You can go back to your Hu clan and say that I, Zichen, will challenge all your 3-star and 4-star Holy Spirits. As long as you have the guts, you can come. If you lose, you'll get whatever you want." At the same time, Zichen also turned to look at the room in the distance. He said, "And the one with the surname Xian. This will work on your Xian clan too." This was considered a great humiliation. However, no one responded. There were many cheering voices in the distance, but no one dared to express a different opinion. They were worried that Zichen would come back and look for them. They weren't the only ones who would be humiliated. Their clans would be humiliated too. Enough. How can you be like this? Suddenly, a cold voice came from afar. Zichen turned his head and said coldly, "Where is the beast making such a ruckus?" A man walked forward, his eyes flashing with killing intent. "You're courting death!" The other core disciples retreated one after another. Their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at the newcomer. Zichen looked at him. "Who do you think you are?" A tyrannical aura surged out from the other party and directly suppressed Zichen. A mocking smile appeared on Zichen's face. "A 5-star Holy Spirit, do you dare to suppress your cultivation level to 3-star to fight me? If I don't torture you to death, I won't be Zichen. Of course, 4-star is fine too." According to Zichen's current strength, fighting a 4-star core disciple was already his limit. As for a 5-star core disciple, it was impossible for him to defeat one. Of course, after using the lightning controlling technique, it was hard to say. The 5-star Holy Spirit's expression did not look too good. He was not confident enough to fight Zichen while suppressing his cultivation level. However, it was obviously impossible for him to admit defeat just like that. He mocked. "When did having a lower cultivation level become something to show off? Your cultivation level is low. You shouldn't blame others for having a higher cultivation level. Instead, you should ask yourself why your cultivation level is so low." Zichen didn't get angry when he heard that. Instead, he pondered seriously for a moment before nodding his head and saying, "What you said makes sense. I completely agree. Now, can you tell me which family you belong to? I want to share this principle with your family members as well." The other people in the distance could not help but roar with laughter. Their voices were very harsh. A cold killing intent flashed in the 5-star Holy Spirit's eyes. "You're courting death." Zichen was still smiling as he said, "When I reach the 4-star level, will you still dare to say these words? It's true that having a higher cultivation level is a good thing. However, being a coward like you is a mistake in itself." Zichen continued, "I won't bully your family members. Anyone below 4-star is fine. Even if they're in the ascending spirit realm, I can suppress my cultivation level and fight them. Do you want to try?" Seeing the other party's changing expression, Zichen's indifferent voice suddenly became cold. If you don't have the guts, then scram. Or should I say, wait until I reach 4-star before I kill you? Brat, it's easy to break. You'd better restrain yourself so you don't embarrass yourself. The other party snorted and turned to leave. What, you want to run away? Can I trouble you all to tell me who this guy is and which family he's from? Zichen's voice immediately rang out. I want to talk to his family about what's easy to break. He's Renaud from the Renaud family. Renaud, who was leaving, staggered when he heard this voice. At this moment, he was already feeling a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would not have stood up. This time, there was no need for Zichen to ask for a list of names. Many enthusiastic court disciples pointed out where several members of the Renaud family lived. After several battles, Zichen's mood was much better. He had also gained a lot. Only then did he leave the core city and return to the Tianwu world. After returning, Jolene had already begun to take over the Ganhai sanctuary. She was very busy, and Zichen could not give any good advice. Therefore, on the same day, he returned to the core city and entered the Thunder Room to begin cultivating. Strength was the foundation of everything. This was a principle that he understood. As for Jolene, there should not be any major problems with the Jella family's help. Next, Zichen began to refine the resources he had won and went into seclusion to cultivate. Jolene, who was discussing with many families, found that the process was not smooth. These families actually had plans to migrate. Jolene was very clear about the price of migration. Why did everyone insist on leaving? Her gaze swept across the group of elders. Jolene said, Everyone is so decisive in migrating. It can't really be because of those rumors, right? The various forces did not dare to neglect this gathering. Those who came were all people with real power in their families. At this moment, after hearing Jolene's words, they all fell silent. Yaheng stood at the side like Jolene's follower. He did not say a word during this time. Jolene continued. The Ganhai Holy Spirit was a 5-star expert. To the Holy Thunder Clan, he was a true mainstay. To be honest, I also feel very sorry for his death. All the family leaders looked at Jolene. Clearly, they did not understand what she meant by mentioning the Ganhai Holy Spirit. Was it a threat? But everyone, think about it. No matter how powerful the Ganhai Holy Spirit was, he was still an alien Star Lord. Why would he dare to seal the Tianwu world's teleportation array for 10 years? Chapter 34-37. The patriarchs were still silent, but their expressions were quietly changing. Ganhai dared to target a core disciple's world, so he obviously had something to rely on. No one knew who this reliance was, but in short, it was someone who didn't fear core disciples. Seeing everyone's changing expressions, Jolene continued. Everyone, think about it again. Why would a 5-star patriarch want to kill a core disciple he had never met before? Moreover, he joined forces with other forces? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. It was obvious that Ganhai had become the scapegoat. How could he have done it? Jolene suddenly stretched out a slender finger and said, Don't say you don't believe it, I don't believe it either. Even my lord doesn't believe it. But that's the truth. No one knows what benefits Ganhai received, or if he only received a promise and began to help others. But it's clear that in the end, not only did those people not thank Ganhai, but they even pushed him out to resolve their own crisis. These words were so straightforward that everyone's expressions changed again. This time, they were no longer thinking about Ganhai, but themselves. Changing the topic, Xiaolina continued. To be honest, all of you are very important to the Ganhai sacred region. Without your support, the Ganhai sacred region will lose a lot of popularity. But have you ever thought that even if you leave, this sanctuary with core disciples will not disappear? As long as it doesn't disappear, there will naturally be a day when it flourishes again. I admit that you are very important, but not to the point that you are indispensable. I believe that my lord, who far surpasses other core disciples in terms of talent and combat strength, will definitely make this place even more prosperous in the future because he will be able to obtain many resources that ordinary people can't. No one spoke. Xiaolina was the only one who spoke. You should be very uninformed and don't know what happened in the core area. You only think that I'm trying to gain popularity for my lord, so it's inevitable that my words are exaggerated. In fact, my lord has already suppressed the Hu and Xian families in the core area with his own strength. Those core disciples are so scared that they don't even dare to leave their homes. Even the most shrewd people had a change in expression when they heard these words. The core region was a complete secret to them. Normally, it was extremely difficult to even see a single core disciple. This time, if it weren't for the fact that someone had contacted them in secret and that they were worried that the master of the Tianwu world was too cruel, they would have been more than happy to stay here. It's up to you whether to believe it or not, but I would like to give everyone a piece of advice. Even an expert like Gan Hai could be pushed out by someone at a critical moment. What are you in the eyes of those people? Jolina sneered. Do you really think that those people are sincerely trying to win you over because they think that you have unlimited potential? Don't joke around. You're just pawns in a battle. Our biggest loss is to regain our popularity. As for you guys, once you lose the value of the game, what do you think will be left with you? A better and more prosperous area? He thought about Gan Hai's ending and then thought about himself. Perhaps at some point, when the two sides face each other head-on, you will be abandoned again. After Jolina finished speaking, she turned around and left decisively. As long as the pros and cons were clearly explained, these people would definitely know what to choose. After all, this wasn't a personal benefit, but a family's future. When Jolina walked out of the main hall, Wula was already waiting outside. Behind him was a group of people from the enforcement team. My lord, everyone is under control. Next, we'll have to wait for you to take over. Seeing Jolina walk out, Wula immediately cupped his fists and bowed. He was a holy spirit, and Jolina hadn't even ascended her spirit. However, he didn't feel awkward at all when she called him my lord. Jolina nodded politely at Wula, then walked towards Gan Hai's mansion, which was the core of the sanctuary. The people here were already under the control of the enforcement team. It was obviously impossible to take anything away. Yaheng had been following beside Jolina the whole time. Speaking of which, Wuli's attitude towards Jolina had shocked him. With Wuli's help, the process of taking over was very smooth. A lot of resources were checked out. After Jolina checked the resources, she took over everything. Everyone who was directly related to Gan Hai was dismissed by Jolina with extra rewards. Immediately after, she appointed some people to temporarily manage the city lord's mansion. After Jolina returned, she brought some people from Zichen's world to stabilize the situation. As the popularity of the sanctuary decreased, Jolina started to release some loose conditions, mainly for the business forces. The treatment was very generous. However, there were still forces that left, even at all costs. It was like sacrificing 800 of your own to kill 1,000 enemies. It was completely unfavorable. Jolina's words weren't useless. There were still some forces that stayed and didn't leave immediately. Other than the forces leaving, there were also many rumors that spread. This caused the popularity of the Gan Hai sanctuary to decrease rapidly. Jolina was a little overwhelmed dealing with this kind of thing. There was a limit to the loss of popularity. After the situation gradually stabilized, Jolina sent people to eliminate those who deliberately spread rumors and punished them severely. Half a year later, the popularity gradually stabilized, and the situation was initially stable. To be able to stabilize the situation in just half a year, in addition to some of Jolina's thunderous methods, the business forces that came in successively also gave a lot of help. The number of new business forces was not small. It was equivalent to sending charcoal in snowy weather. And most of these business forces had a big background. Tracing back, they all had the background of a core disciple. These were the forces that Zichen had deliberately lured in. If they were in the core region, they wouldn't count for much, but in the outer regions, they were all famous forces. The original crisis was thus resolved. The forces that didn't leave were all very glad after seeing these big forces come in. With them here, there was no need to worry about the popularity of the sanctuary. With the arrival of more business forces, the sanctuary became more and more lively. The popularity began to return. 2 years later, the situation stabilized. These business forces that didn't leave were all very glad. Because the business forces that left recently began to contact these forces, hoping to help say some good words and wanted to come back. Just as Jolena said, after many business forces came in, the game was announced to be over. As for those who had left earlier, they naturally became sacrificial lambs. Chapter 34-38. 3 years later, the Ganhai Sanctuary was officially renamed the Tianwu Sanctuary. The current core of the sanctuary was still the world of the Ganhai Sanctuary. This world currently had nearly 100 big and small cities. Although it had not yet recovered to its original glory, its popularity was rising month by month, which was a good sign. As for the Tianwu world, it was not completely open to the outside world yet. Jolena planned to develop this place into something like a holy land, one level higher than the Ganhai Sanctuary. If the Ganhai Sanctuary was at the level of a bustling city, then the future Tianwu world would be a higher level of prosperity. The major forces had already entered the Tianwu world and began to build this world full of strange ancient trees. This time, the Jella family had contributed a lot, and both sides had reached a consensus on the matter of weapon refinement. Time passed, and several years passed quickly. Zichen, who was in seclusion, had a third holy power lightning ball appear around him. Nearly 10 years had passed, and there were not many spoils left from his last challenge. As for the distribution of his resources, it would take a long time. Zichen decided to go to the Tianwu world to take a look. He wondered how the Ganhai Sanctuary was doing now. Returning to the Tianwu world with ease, Zichen found that it was much more lively than before. After returning to the core tree city, Zichen went to find Jolena. Jolena was dealing with some matters. When she saw Zichen, her eyes immediately lit up in surprise. "Why are you here?" Zichen said. "I've finished refining the resources, so I came to see how the development here is going." Jolena said. "Everything is developing steadily. The popularity of the Tianwu Sanctuary has basically returned to the past. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the original Ganhai Sanctuary has officially been renamed the Tianwu Sanctuary." Zichen smiled and said, "You're very thoughtful. You came back at the right time. I plan to develop the Tianwu world into a higher level world. In the future, this place will be more prosperous, and more experts will come," Jolena said. "That's a good thing. Do you need my help?" Zichen asked. "Of course. If you want more experts to come here, you need to take out something that can attract them," Jolena said. "I can't give you these things. I can only rely on you." Jolena looked at Zichen and said, "You have to do everything you can to obtain as many rare resources as possible. Only then will we be able to retain more experts." Zichen pondered for a moment before saying, "That's a good idea, but with the resources I've obtained alone, it should be impossible to maintain the operation of a world, right?" Jolena said, "This is indeed quite difficult." Zichen smiled bitterly. "It's not just big. It's impossible," Jolena said. "Giving you resources is just the first step to attract popularity. The second step is the most crucial one. Our world must have something special." "What is it?" Zichen asked curiously. "What's in the core sacred region where you are?" Jolena asked instead of answering. "There are 4 kinds of rooms in the sacred thunder world, and the spiritual power there is very rich. It's very suitable for the people of the Holy Thunder clan to cultivate. In addition, there are many exotic flowers and herbs outside. That's the real core of the Holy Thunder clan. In the core sacred region, those who came and went were either geniuses or people from great forces. There was absolutely no ordinary person. After all, that was the highest level world of the Holy Thunder clan." Zichen's expression suddenly changed. He said, "Are you thinking of Jolina nodded and said, "That's right. Our world will develop like this. So before that, the Tianwu world has to move." "Move? Where?" Zichen asked doubtfully. "I've asked around." In the outer zone of the Holy Thunder World, some high-grade sacred regions are mostly very close to the Thunder Sea. The spiritual power of heaven and earth there is richer. As the world continues to absorb and grow, the grade of spiritual power in the world is also constantly increasing. Jolina said, "The most attractive thing there is the cultivation conditions." Zichen said, "Do you want me to put the world in the outer zone of the Thunder Sea?" Jolina shook her head and said, "No, that's just a small trick. I want you to put the world in the Thunder Sea of the core sacred region." "What?" Zichen's expression changed when he heard that. The Thunder Sea of the core sacred region, in addition to the terrifying power of thunder, was even more of a secret to the Holy Thunder clan. Ordinary outsiders were not allowed to set foot there at all. Looking at Zichen's changing expression, Jolina pointed to the top and said, "This is your world. It's obviously different from their world. I think it can completely withstand the baptism of terrifying thunder. In addition, you also have the absolute right to speak. You can set the rules you think. As long as you don't agree, no one can break this world." Zichen understood what Jolina meant. In the past, he had also stayed in a world. After reaching the Spirit Ascension realm, he had broken through the world and arrived at the Saint Spirit realm. Right now, for the living beings of the Tianwu world, the area they were in was a complete world. Zichen was the master of that world, and he could control the life and death of living beings at will. As long as he was unwilling, no one could break through the world and leave. This was because the power of the world all listened to him. At the same time, it was also because the Tianwu world was a real world. There were countless living beings that could survive there. It was different from the world that was created by cultivation. The Tianwu world was complete, perfect, and also unique. However, if he wanted to put the world in the Thunder Sea, it was obviously not a simple matter. He needed to find someone to ask about it. If this is done, then the greatest advantage of the Tianwu world will be the density of spiritual power and the speed of cultivation. At that time, just by renting out the area, we will be able to earn a lot of resources. Xiaolina said, "That's the only way for you to break through to the next level quickly. Otherwise, with the current income of the Tianwu Star area, you might not be able to break through to the next level in 10,000 years. We need to create an area similar to the core city because we have a different Tianwu continent." Zichen needed to find someone to ask about this matter. If it was really successful, then in the future, the Tianwu world would definitely be a gathering of strong people. At that time, the income would naturally be very considerable. "This is for you." Before leaving, Zichen took out a talisman and gave it to Jolina. This was something he had won in the last battle. It was not very useful to him, but to Jolina, it was a good thing to protect herself. "Take it to protect yourself." Jolina did not refuse. Her current realm was too low. Although there were strong people guarding her, it was naturally good to have one more life-saving thing. "I will go back to the core city and ask about this matter." Zichen, who had just arrived, immediately left. On the way back, Zichen was thinking about who to ask. Gloria should know about this matter, but she definitely did not have the authority. Pei Wenyao thought the same. Chapter 34-39. The Holy Sage of Thunder Earth had a lot of power, so he could get it done easily. However, Zichen did not want to trouble the Holy Sage too much. Just like last time, before he knocked on the door, the butler stood at the door and looked at Zichen with a smile. "Young Master Zichen, I am sorry. The Holy Sage has not returned yet." Zichen scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "I am not here to look for the Holy Sage. I am here to ask the butler something." "Oh? You are here to look for me? Come in quickly." The butler was surprised and invited Zichen in. Then, he brought him to the side hall and poured him a cup of tea. "What is it?" The butler sat beside Zichen. "I want to put the world in the Thunder Sea. Is that okay?" Zichen thought about it and decided to ask directly. Put the Thunder Sea directly? The energy there is very violent. How can it be better than the core area? The butler was confused and asked, Why do you want to put the world there? Zichen did not hide it and said directly, I want to develop the world into a lively and prosperous place, similar to the core city. The butler nodded and apparently understood what Zichen meant. I am here to ask if there will be too much trouble, or if I need to get someone's approval? Zichen asked again. The steward thought for a moment and said, Under normal circumstances, you need to pay attention to two problems. The first is whether or not there will be some people with bad intentions sneaking into the core of the sacred Thunder tribe through your world. The second problem is whether or not the world can withstand the violent lightning in the Thunder Sea. Zichen said, My world is closely connected to me. If it is not too strong. The butler reached out and interrupted Zichen and said with a smile, As long as you know the first thing, it does not matter what the result is. I think in this world, no one would dare to look for trouble with the Holy Thunder Clan. You need to pay attention to the second thing. Can your world withstand the continuous raging of the Thunder Sea? If it is forcefully disintegrated, it will have a great impact on your cultivation. In history, similar things have happened before. Zichen said, I want to try. Besides, I have some confidence in my own world. Now? The butler asked. Can I? Zichen was stunned. Don't you need some approval? The butler smiled and said, The Thunder Sea is infinitely big. How much can you occupy? Furthermore, this can be considered as a form of training. To the Thunder tribe, anything that can train their disciples is a good thing. The butler stood up and said, If you're ready, we'll go now. Zichen immediately stood up with an excited look on his face. He didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Just as he stood up, Zichen felt a powerful force coming from behind him. Before he could react, a bang sound rang out. Zichen's body flew out of the room and landed on the ground, falling flat on his face. This action is very handsome. A childish laugh rang out. He's so handsome. Zichen heard the voice and turned around. He saw a young boy standing there, looking at him with a smile. Clan ancestor. Zichen, who was about to lose his temper, instantly changed his expression and pretended to be shocked. Hee, what did you say? I didn't hear it. The clan ancestor walked forward and deliberately leaned over. Zichen turned over and got up. His sudden movement startled the clan ancestor, who retreated reflexively. Soon, he noticed the abnormality and glanced at the butler. The butler turned his head and looked at the other side, pretending not to see it. Zichen greets the clan ancestor. Zichen, who turned over and got up, quickly cupped his fists and saluted with a loud voice. The clan ancestor glanced at Zichen's wrist and didn't notice the suppression of his aura. He snorted and said, Boy, you're quite sensible. You know that I have to salute you when I see you. Zichen said with a smile. That's right. The clan ancestor is the peak power of our Holy Thunder clan. Who doesn't salute you respectfully when they see you? I'll be satisfied if I have 1 or 2 10,000ths of your power. The clan ancestor was very pleased. He stepped forward and stretched out his palm. Zichen deliberately bent over. The clan ancestor patted him on the shoulder and said, You're a good boy. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll take you to the Thunder Sea. As soon as he finished speaking, the three of them disappeared. When they reappeared, Zichen was already in the Thunder Sea. As far as the eye could see, there were thunderbolts everywhere, and a terrifying pressure swept through every place. The clan ancestor stood in the Thunder Sea and said proudly, Boy, this is the Thunder Sea of the core area. As a core disciple, you should naturally put your world here. So, do you have confidence? The butler deliberately stood behind the clan ancestor and remained silent. Zichen extended his spiritual thoughts and perceived the power of the thunderbolts. After a while he said, It should be no problem. The clan ancestor laughed and said, Boy, you're not modest at all. In that case, why don't you give it a try while I'm in a good mood? Zichen nodded and began to summon the Zichen Palace. In the sky above the Tianwu world, The Zichin Palace suddenly appeared, releasing tens of thousands of thunderbolts. A suction force appeared from the Zichin Palace and enveloped the Tianwu world below. The Tianwu world rose with the suction force and slowly shrank at the same time until it entered the Zichin Palace. In the next moment, the Zichin Palace disappeared. In the Tianwu world, many people only felt that the world was bright, and the original sunlight had disappeared. The light of those transmission arrays immediately dimmed, as if they were broken. Other than that, there was nothing unusual. The so-called shaking and trembling did not appear. Jolene walked out of the room and looked up at the sky. Her expression changed slightly. In front of Zichin, brilliance circulated, and the Zichin Palace appeared. Countless thunderbolts raged, but they could not do anything to the Zichin Palace. The Tianwu world flew out of the Zichin Palace and fell into the Thunder Sea. The falling world began to enlarge. Outside the world, there was also thunderbolts lingering, like a layer of protection. The two different thunderbolts collided, and a roar resounded. In the Tianwu world, everyone heard a deafening sound coming from outside the world. The Tianwu world fell into the Thunder Sea, and the rules of the world began to operate according to Zichen's will. Like countless tentacles, they extended from the world and began to capture the power of the thunderbolts in the Thunder Sea. These thunderbolts passed through the world's protection and turned into pure power, entering the Tianwu world. Some of the power turned into pure thunderbolts, while the other part was scattered into the countless rules of the world. This was the uniqueness of the Tianwu world. It could decompose the power of thunderbolts, so it was suitable for everyone to cultivate. Chapter 3440. Your world looks pretty good. The vain ancestor looked at the world in front of him and praised. The housekeeper nodded in agreement. The pressure of this core Thunder Sea was extremely great. If a normal world came here, it would inevitably be suppressed. The best result would be that its size would keep shrinking, and the worst result would be that it would directly collapse. However, Zichen's world had been very stable from beginning to end. It did not expand too quickly, nor was it suppressed or shrunk. It had been steadily expanding until it adapted to the thunder here and took root here. Countless rules appeared in the world, as if they were about to merge with this Thunder Sea. At the same time, the countless pure energy contained in the Thunder Sea was forcibly extracted by the Tianwu world. The concentration of spiritual power in the Tianwu world was increasing at a constant rate. It might not be obvious in the beginning, but if it continued, the whole world would undergo earth-shaking changes. This would take time. The development of the Tianwu world also needed time. Both were just right. That's it. Zichin looked at the stable world, then looked at the vain ancestor and the housekeeper. The vain ancestor said, "Basically, it's your business now. Although outsiders are prohibited from sneaking into the Thunder Sea, you can occasionally open it to your own people." Zichin looked at the vain ancestor in confusion. The vain ancestor jumped up and knocked on Zichen's head. "Stupid, there are a lot of good things in the Thunder Sea. Wouldn't it be a waste if you don't look for them?" Zichin suddenly understood and glanced at the vain ancestor gratefully. "Don't worry. Even if someone wants to use your passage here to do something to the Thunder Clan, it is absolutely impossible to succeed. Unless all the forces in the entire Saint Spirit world unite." The vain ancestor smiled and said, "Do you have any other doubts? If not, I'm leaving." Zichin shook his head and then cupped his fists to thank him. The next moment, the vain ancestor and the housekeeper disappeared. At this point, Zichin was completely sure that the vain ancestor would not target him. Although the other party looked like a child, he still had the spirit of an ancestor. With a flash of light, Zichin returned to the Tianwu world. As the ruler of this world, his senses were very sharp. He knew very well what kind of changes were taking place in this world. Apart from the energy of heaven and earth, the first to be concentrated was the earth that nurtured all living things. A large amount of spiritual energy sank into the ground. After the baptism of time, the world would change greatly. It might not be able to become a place like the inner world, but it was definitely of a much higher grade than an ordinary world. In fact, many people with sharp senses had already noticed the abnormality in the world. Heaven and earth lit up. With a thought from Zichen, boundless power gathered in the air and condensed into a golden sun. The sun shone down again. It was warm, and the earth was full of vitality. The sun was fake, and there would be a fake moon at night. This world was fake to Zichen, but it was real to other living beings. It was both fake and real. Back in Tree City, Zichen looked at Jolina and said, "Start your plan." Jolina asked, "What's the situation?" Zichen said, "At present, it's still on the periphery, but it will slowly go deeper. In the future, the spiritual energy should surpass any city in the outer domain." "Well, it's up to you now," Jolina said. If he wanted to gather popularity, he needed something to attract people. In this regard, Zichen naturally needed to deal with it. Zichen suddenly thought of something and said, "I got some materials last time, but they're basically useless. Take them and deal with them." They were the things in Julin's treasure house. Although most of them were materials of the ascending spirit realm, some were also needed by holy spirits. In addition, there were some resources he obtained after killing Julin that he didn't need. After handing these resources to Jolina, Zichen left the Tianwu world and went to the Tianwu sacred region to check it out. Originally, Zichen didn't deliberately learn about the Tianwu sacred region. Now that he saw the popularity of the Tianwu world, it was not bad. Moreover, with the addition of many forces, he believed that the Tianwu sacred region would become more and more popular in the future. After patrolling, Zichen went to the core city. The Tianwu sacred region was still developing, and the resources it obtained were used by Jolina to rebuild it. Therefore, Zichen couldn't get any resources from here. He even had to find some special resources to attract people for the future popularity of the Tianwu world. After returning to the core city, Zichen went to find Grace. He was ready to enter the Divine Spirit battlefield. Grace said, "If you want to enter the Divine Spirit battlefield, you need to make arrangements in advance. Moreover, the Divine Spirit battlefield is divided into 3 levels. Which level do you want to enter?" "Which 3 levels?" Zichen asked, puzzled. "Earth level, Heaven level, and Saint level," Grace explained. "The danger of the Earth level is relatively low. The danger of the Heaven level and Saint level is constantly increasing. Do you have any good suggestions?" Zichen asked. He obviously didn't know much about the Divine Spirit battlefield. The beasts in the Earth level are relatively ordinary. The beasts in the Heaven level are much stronger. Do you still remember the Holy Thunder Demon Bone that Monk Xingju wanted? The Heaven level battlefield has it. If you are lucky, you can get it. But the Saint level is different. Most of the beasts there are special and extremely powerful. The weakest among them is in existence at the level of a 4-star Holy Spirit." At the end, Grace's expression became much more solemn. The Saint-level battlefield is the most dangerous. This is also the reason why the Holy Thunder Demon Bone is extremely rare. If you want my advice, I think it's better for you to enter the Heaven-level battlefield and familiarize yourself with it. I'll go directly to the Saint level," Zichen said after thinking for a while. "You have to think carefully. It's very dangerous there," Grace said. "Even some core disciples don't dare to casually step into that place." Zichen said, "That's why I want to go there. Fewer people meant fewer troubles." Moreover, Zichen was now a 3-star Holy Spirit. Even his physical body had reached the 3-star Holy Power realm. If he encountered a 4-star, he would not be afraid at all. Even if he encountered a 5-star, he would still have the power to fight. After applying to enter the Divine Spirit battlefield, Zichen once again returned to the Tianwu world. Jolina told Zichen that he could only stay on the Divine Spirit battlefield for 10 years at most. This was because after 10 years the Tianwu world would need to be completely open to the outside world to accumulate popularity. In these 10 years, Jolina also needed to pull in more forces to develop the world together. She needed to make all the preparations in advance. 2 days later, Zichen took the core disciple token and entered the Divine Spirit battlefield. Chapter 34-41. Roar! The roar was like a thunderclap, and a strong wave of air spread out. The spiritual grass in the surroundings fell, and the wave went away. Looking at the roaring giant ape in front of him, Zichen narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. This was the first mutated beast he had encountered since coming to the Divine Spirit battlefield. 10 days had passed. Judging from the aura emitted from the giant ape, it was equivalent to a 4-star sacred spirit, which was the weakest existence on the battlefield. The giant ape rushed toward Zichen with a piercing howl. It did not use any mysterious techniques, but only pure physical strength. It was as if it was going to break through space and come at him in a straight line. Zichen took a step forward and clenched his right fist, and 3 thunderballs emerged from his body. There was a loud bang, and a powerful ripple spread out. 100 feet away, Zichen glanced at his numb palm, and there was a look of surprise in his eyes. He did not gain the upper hand in this collision, and was directly blasted back 100 feet. With another roar, the giant ape rushed forward. Its thick palms whistled as they slammed down. Between its palms, black demonic energy began to churn. Sacred thunder, explode! With a low shout, Zichen used the technique. 3 thunderballs gathered in his fist, and the fist shone brightly with countless lightning snakes circling around it. There was another roar, and a stronger wave spread out. The violent power of thunder drowned the giant ape's body, and countless thunderbolts raged, and the giant ape screamed in pain. When the energy dissipated, Zichen saw that the giant ape's scales were broken in many places, and blood was flowing out. Its eyes gradually turned red, and a violent aura emerged from its body. Boom! Boom! A man and a beast fought together. As their powerful forces collided, there was a constant roar, and countless waves spread out. Zichen used the strength of a 3-star physical body, and the giant ape seemed to have a violent supernatural power similar to the demonic ape. As its injuries worsened, its strength also increased. Zichen began to use the power of his sacred spirit, 1 star, 2 stars. He did not use the demonic saber, and fought the giant ape with his bare hands until the giant ape's injuries worsened, and it was on the verge of death. With a bang, the giant ape was sent flying to the ground, blood splattering everywhere. Looking at this divine blood, Zichen felt a bit of heartache. Once he refined this blood, he would be able to sell it for a good price, and it would be of great help to the world. The giant ape's red eyes gradually became lifeless. It was obvious that it was about to reach the end of its life. Zichen walked forward, intending to deal the final blow. Suddenly, a dangerous aura surged out from the giant ape's body. A bolt of lightning appeared on the giant ape's body that was originally surrounded by black light. The lightning came from its arm and was abnormally bright. Seeing this scene, Zichen's expression couldn't help but change. Holy Thunder Demon Bone? The sudden change caused the giant ape's strength to increase once again, and its injuries seemed to have healed in an instant. It roared furiously and pounced towards Zichen once again. This strike was like a thunderbolt. Zichen no longer dared to be careless, and used the power of 3 stars. At this moment, he had used all of his strength. Holy Thunder Explosion! 3 lightning balls entered his fist, and with the power of 3 stars, Zichen's strike had reached its limit. Boom! The fist aura exploded, and countless lightning bolts enveloped the giant ape's body like a torrent, instantly drowning out its powerful strength. Howls of anguish could be heard as the giant ape struggled in the violent lightning. After a moment, the energy dissipated, and the giant ape fell to the ground, motionless. It was dead, and there was still lightning flashing on its arm. Zichen stepped forward, took out the Holy Spirit flying dagger, and began to dissect the giant ape's body. Its bones were very hard, but only its arm was emitting lightning. This should be the Holy Thunder Demon Bone that Monk Xingju wanted. As for the other bones, they were normal demon bones that could be used to refine weapons. After cleaning up the battlefield, Zichen was deep in thought. He finally understood why the Holy Thunder Demon Bone was so expensive. It was a rare item even in the Holy Thunder clan. It was because he only got 1 bone from killing a 4-star exotic beast. Moreover, he had used all of his strength. If it were any other core disciple, it would be too difficult to kill a 4-star exotic beast with 3-star strength. What Zichen didn't know was that most of the core disciples of the Holy Thunder clan hunted in the heaven-level battlefield to train themselves. Those who entered the saint-level battlefield were all high-level powerhouses. These powerhouses often had aristocratic families behind them, and they might even be the head of a family. Most of the resources they obtained were digested within the family, and they rarely sold to the outside world. That was why the Holy Thunder Demon Bone was so rare. In the following time, Zichen moved forward and found some exotic beasts one after another. After killing them one by one, he could get some Holy Thunder Demon Bones. As time passed, Zichen, who had killed more and more exotic beasts, discovered a pattern. These exotic beasts were very strong in combat, but with the Holy Thunder Demon Bone, they would be even stronger. Every additional Holy Thunder Demon Bone in one's body would increase one's strength. Moreover, the Holy Thunder Demon Bone was very hard. Even if Zichen used the demonic blade, he wouldn't be able to split it in half. If it was used to refine weapons, it would be processed with special materials. In the continuous battles, Zichen's harvest gradually increased. At the same time, his combat strength was also tempered to a certain extent. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. The number of demonic bones in the bodies of the exotic beasts he encountered gradually increased. Naturally, their battle prowess also became stronger. After staying here for 2 whole years, Zichen encountered a 5-star exotic beast for the first time. The moment his spiritual senses detected the other party, Zichen began to retreat. Swoosh! In the process of retreating, Zichen used the 9 flashes of holy thunder, increasing his speed like a bolt of lightning. At this moment, his face revealed a vigilant look. He had been here for more than 2 years and had killed many exotic beasts. This was his first time encountering a 5-star exotic beast, and he didn't expect to be set up. If it wasn't for Zichen's extraordinary spiritual senses, he probably wouldn't have known that he had been deliberately set up. At this moment, within the range of Zichen's spiritual senses, exotic beasts were constantly flying in his direction, forming a circle. At this moment, the encirclement was closing in. There were more than 24-star exotic beasts, which was equivalent to more than 24-star core disciples. In addition, there was a 5-star beast chasing after them. Zichen, who had used his extreme speed, was very glad that his spiritual senses were strong enough and could extend to a wide range. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the trap. The 5-star exotic beast was closing in, but the distance between the two parties was very far. In addition, Zichen had used his extreme speed. It was obviously impossible for the other party to catch up to him. This scheme had obviously failed. As long as he broke out of the encirclement, Zichen would be able to start killing these exotic beasts one by one. Looks like my luck isn't bad. Zichen smiled. In just a moment, he would be able to break out of the encirclement. At this moment, within the range of his spiritual senses, the 5-star exotic beast's 4 legs suddenly lit up with lightning. Just as Zichen sensed the abnormality, he saw the other party's speed suddenly increase. The distance between the two was rapidly closing. Zichen discovered in shock that his 3-star Holy Thunder extreme speed wasn't as fast as the other party. Chapter 3442. Looking at the 5-star beast in the sky, Zichen was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. Although he was only at the 3-star level, he had mastered 3 flashes of the 9 flashes of the Holy Thunder. In terms of speed, he could suppress many 5-star holy spirits. But now, he was being overtaken by a beast. It was a black beast with scales all over its body that looked like a shadow leopard. Only its 4 legs were flashing with lightning. According to Zichen's 2 years of experience, the beast's 4-leg bones must be the Holy Thunder Demon Bone. But why was the Holy Thunder Demon Bone able to move so quickly? After a short pause, streams of light appeared from all directions. Other beasts of different forms came one after another. He was surrounded. There was a hint of mockery in the 5-star beast's cold eyes. It slowly retreated. Zichen took a step forward, and his body lit up. He was a 3-star Holy Spirit with 3 lightning balls around him. He shouted at the beasts, "Back off, or I'll kill you!" The mockery in the 5-star beast's eyes intensified. Angry roars came from all directions. It was as if thunder shook heaven and earth. Countless sound waves spread in all directions, forming layers of attacks. Ripples surged around Zichen's body as he charged forward. As he rushed forward, the demonic saber was in his hand. A 4-star beast rushed toward Zichen. It was a beast in the shape of a deer. The antlers on its head released the light of lightning. The antlers were the mutated Holy Thunder Demon Bone, which was also the hardest part of the beast's body. The antlers moved forward with terrifying power as if they were divine weapons. Zichen's body flickered with lightning. Before the attack arrived, he disappeared into thin air. He didn't fight directly. Instead, he chose to dodge. The moment he dodged, he unsheathed the demonic saber. The saber arc swept across the beast's neck. A line of blood spread out, and the beast's head was separated from its body. There were too many beasts here. Facing a siege, Zichen didn't dare to be careless. After killing one beast, Zichen used the 9 flashes of the Holy Thunder again. His figure flashed continuously, avoiding one attack after another. At this moment, all the beasts involved in the siege had the Holy Thunder Demon Bone. As for the part that had turned into the Holy Thunder Demon Bone, its attack was extremely powerful. If this scene was seen by others, they would definitely not be happy, but terrified. Mutated beasts that possessed the Holy Thunder Demon Bone were stronger than other mutated beasts in the first place. Coupled with the unique Holy Thunder Demon Bone, every mutated beast was comparable to a core disciple of the same level, or perhaps even stronger. Pooh! While dodging, Zichen kept unsheathing his demonic saber. Every strike of his was at full strength. The consumption rate began to increase. Puff! 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 The exotic beasts died one after another. Zichen was like a bolt of lightning, moving among the many exotic beasts. It looked like he was a fish in water, very relaxed. In fact, that wasn't the case. Among a group of 4-star exotic beasts, his spiritual energy was at its peak. Every time he dodged, the energy he expended far exceeded what he used to. In such a short period of time, he had already used up 30% of his energy. If it were anyone else, even a 4-star Holy Spirit would have died a long time ago, let alone a 3-star Holy Spirit. The 4-star exotic beasts died one after another. The ones that were still alive were all fearless and kept attacking. The 5-star exotic beasts in the distance watched the battle indifferently. They didn't join the battle, nor did they leave. As the consumption continued, Zichen's speed gradually slowed down. Some of the attacks could no longer be avoided, and there were more bloody wounds on his body. Fortunately, his physical body was strong enough. Although he looked like he was covered in wounds, his muscles and bones weren't damaged. After the last 4-star exotic beast was killed, Zichen's energy consumption had reached its limit. His body was covered in bloody wounds. The armor he had plundered had long lost its spiritual power and was completely scrapped. More than 20 corpses fell to the ground. The Holy Thunder Demon Bone was clearly visible. This was an endless amount of wealth. Just taking out any one of these pieces would cause a great scramble for it. The 5-star exotic beast that had been watching the battle silently walked forward slowly. Black light appeared on its body. Only its 4 legs were shining with lightning. Half of the sky was dyed black at this moment. A strong pressure swept toward Zichen. Zichen looked at the exotic beast and said in a deep voice, "You're smart. You know how to exhaust my energy first. However, you shouldn't have come looking for trouble with me." Zichen took a deep breath. The energy of heaven and earth entered his body and was quickly refined, recovering his energy consumption. Under the cover of the dark light, a bolt of lightning appeared. Zichen only saw a blur before his abdomen suffered a heavy blow. With a loud bang, his body flew backward. The 5-star exotic beast stood where he was before, staring at Zichen with disdain. "So fast! Zichen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. This was the fastest 5-star Holy Spirit he had seen so far. In the previous moment, he only saw a blurry shadow before he suffered a heavy blow. Fortunately, his physical body was strong. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured by the previous blow. Under the black energy, lightning flashed again, and a strong wind blew. Zichen still couldn't see anything. However, when he sensed danger, he held his saber in front of him. Boom! With a loud boom, Zichen was sent flying again. This time, before Zichen could react, the sky darkened as if night had fallen. Danger was approaching. Zichen's eyes lit up. It was the Eye of Destruction. He instantly saw through the dark surroundings. At the same time, he saw the 5-star exotic beast approaching. The exotic beast stretched out its sharp claws and slapped at his head. If this attack hit, Zichen would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. A real light shot out and landed on the exotic beast. The exotic beast's attack slowed down slightly. Taking advantage of this moment, Zichen dodged decisively. Zichen flashed to the exotic beast's side and slashed down with his saber. Swish! The bright saber arc flew away, splitting the darkness in two. Blood splattered in front of him. A deep bloody wound appeared on the 5-star exotic beast's body. The exotic beast's eyes shone. It couldn't believe that this human 3-star Holy Spirit, who had consumed a lot of energy, could hurt it. In the next moment, darkness descended again. The Eye of Destruction appeared in Zichen's eyes. This strange eye technique allowed him to see through the darkness clearly, and at the same time, he blocked the exotic beast's instantaneous attack. After dodging this time, Zichen punched. An all-out attack. The power of the demonic bone appeared. Countless lightning bolts circled around his fist. With a thunderous boom, a powerful shockwave spread out, breaking through the dark energy once again. If it weren't for the Eye of Destruction, Zichen would definitely be suppressed. However, at this moment, he was able to fight evenly with the exotic beast. However, that was all. With the advantage of the Eye of Destruction, Zichen left wounds on the 5-star exotic beast's body one after another. There were remnants of lightning power on the surface of those wounds. Gradually, the light wounds became serious. Seeing that it couldn't kill the human, the 5-star exotic beast was ready to flee. However, before it fled, it actually wanted to take away Zichen's spoils. 1. Lightning flashed. The Holy Spirit flying dagger flew out. Chapter 34-43. Zichen hadn't used this technique since the start of the battle. After he detected the other party's intention with the Eye of Destruction, he used it decisively. He had worked hard to obtain these spoils, and even got injured for it. How could he let the other party have them? Caught off guard, the Holy Spirit flying dagger directly pierced through the 5-star Holy Spirit's head. The other party let out a shrill cry and flew away. Looking at the fleeing figure, Zichen sighed. As a 3-star Holy Spirit, his combat strength was very strong, and he had a record of killing 5-star beasts. However, in this area, facing a 5-star exotic beast with a holy lightning demon bone, this was the best he could do. The other party's vitality was beyond his imagination. Next was to collect the spoils. Without needing to decompose them one by one, Zichen only used his energy to collect them. He didn't even need to seal them deliberately. Because these were all powerful Holy Spirits, they would almost never rot or dissipate. If he left their corpses in the low-level myriad spirit world, they might even come back to life. While collecting the spoils, Zichen still didn't let down his guard. The previous battle had caused quite a commotion. There might be someone trying to fish in troubled waters. Suddenly, Zichen felt danger approaching. The moment he turned around, a bolt of lightning appeared in his sight. With a puff, Zichen's body was torn into countless pieces, disappearing from this world. There were traces of blood left in the air. 1,000 feet away, Zichen's figure appeared. His eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. Die! The Holy Spirit flying dagger turned into a streak of light and flew forward. The 5-star exotic beast glanced at Zichen, then turned into a bolt of lightning and flew away. At this moment, Zichen's body was bleeding profusely. There were several bloody holes on his shoulder caused by the sharp teeth. If he hadn't reacted quickly and dodged his head, the other party's sneak attack would have bitten his head off. Moreover, Zichen noticed that there was lightning flickering on the other party's sharp teeth. There was also a concealment technique that Zichen didn't notice. The other party's cunning was truly unexpected. If it weren't for his sharp senses, he would have really lost his life here. The heavily injured Zichen didn't dare to stay any longer. He immediately left. Since the other party's sneak attack had failed, they might try again. Just as Zichen left, the 5-star exotic beast appeared once more. Its cold eyes stared at the departing Zichen. Then, it chased after him. In Zichen's perception, a 5-star exotic beast had appeared and was following behind him at a leisurely pace. It was obvious that it wanted to exhaust him to death. Without hesitation, Zichen swallowed the second high-quality pill he had snatched from Julin. As soon as the pill entered his stomach, it transformed into pure medicinal energy and began to heal his injuries. Even though Zichen was moving forward quickly, it did not affect the recovery of his injuries. The 5-star exotic beast was still chasing after them at a leisurely pace. It was like a hungry wolf, ready to pounce on them at any moment. Zichen suppressed his aura so that he was still in a heavily injured state. However, he did not deliberately suppress the external injuries and allowed them to heal. After chasing for an hour, Zichen suddenly launched an attack. The Holy Spirit flying dagger turned into a bolt of lightning and shot towards the 5-star exotic beast. However, Zichen did not take the opportunity to chase after it. Instead, he quickly flew away. The 5-star exotic beast, which was still a little wary, easily shook off the Holy Spirit flying dagger when it saw this scene. It turned into a streak of light and chased after him. However, after chasing for nearly 100 miles, it saw the fleeing human standing there with a cold expression. It suddenly had a bad feeling in its heart and wanted to retreat. Too late! Zichen's cold voice rang out as he made the last seal in his hand. A dazzling ray of light lit up the sky. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, and a rumbling sound rang out in the wilderness. The energy that Zichen had recovered earlier rapidly disappeared. The 5-star exotic beast let out a shrill cry. Thick smoke rose from its body as it fell to the ground. Zichen flew forward and came to the dead 5-star exotic beast. His eyes were cold. "You really have a death wish!" The dead 5-star exotic beast could no longer suppress its power, especially the holy thunder demon bone. In addition to its limbs, the teeth in its mouth were also part of the holy thunder demon bone. It was no wonder that it could penetrate its powerful body in an instant. Zichen gained a lot in this battle, but he also lost a lot. He wasted a 4th-grade sacred spirit elixir. The lightning-controlling technique caused too much of a commotion. After taking away the 5-star exotic beast's corpse, Zichen decisively left this place. Tens of thousands of miles away, a middle-aged man who was training here suddenly raised his head and looked towards the end of his line of sight. There was a powerful fluctuation that could not be seen by the naked eye spreading in this direction. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly, and he rushed towards the source of the fluctuation. Zichen's injuries had all healed. After the last battle, his cultivation had also improved a lot. At this moment, Zichen was holding a piece of holy thunder demon bone in his hand. It was rare for him to be in a daze. The holy thunder demon bone contained great power. Even after its master died, it was still so. It was normal for it to be in short supply in the Holy Thunder clan. In Zichen's opinion, it was normal. However, if the demonic beast had the Holy Thunder demon bone, why didn't the humans of the Holy Thunder clan have it? One must know that Zichen's body was extremely strong. He could even condense the power of his physical body. However, in front of the Holy Thunder demon bone, he was still vulnerable. The Holy Thunder body tempering art was definitely one of the top techniques of the Holy Thunder clan. However, it still could not condense the lightning bone. Zichen looked at the holy thunder demon bone in his hand and placed it in his left hand. Then, he activated his right hand, and a powerful aura spread out. The 7 demon bones that had fused into one appeared. In Zichen's opinion, the 7 demon bones were not weaker than the holy thunder demon bone. It was just that their attributes did not match, so it could not unleash its full power. Then again, if the demonic race had something comparable to the Holy Thunder Demon Bone, why didn't the Holy Thunder clan have it? There was no answer to this question for the time being. Zichen continued to move forward on the battlefield. After the battle with the 5-star beast last time, he became even more careful and cautious. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years passed. In these 5 years, Zichen had refined a lot of sacred crystals from the exotic beasts. His realm had improved tremendously, and he was not far away from 4-star. The improvement of his physical strength was not small either. It could even be said that it was greater. This was because Zichen had been using his physical body most of the time in the battle. Those exotic beasts could condense the Holy Thunder Demon Bone here. Zichen also hoped to use the Holy Thunder Body Tempering Art to condense the Lightning Bone here. When that time came, his combat strength would be even stronger. There was still half of the time left for the agreed time with Jolena. Zichen strived to make greater gains in the remaining time. Just as Zichen continued to move forward, others followed the footprints he left on the battlefield. Chapter 34-44. Beside a flowing river, Zichen stood indifferently. Drops of blood flowed down his arm. His shoulder was pierced, and his entire arm was almost crippled. In front of him was the corpse of a 5-star exotic beast. The exotic beast was good at hiding and took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, injuring Zichen. Although he had been very careful, Zichen still fell into many difficult battles in the past few years. Injuries were inevitable. In this place, the number of times he ran away increased significantly. Taking a few steps forward and collecting the exotic beast's corpse, Zichen suddenly raised his eyebrows slightly. "Who is it? Come out!" The forest was silent. There was no response. The sound of flowing water came from the river behind him. Zichen frowned slightly. Earlier, he was acutely aware that an aura had locked onto him. Suddenly, the forest split in the middle. Silently, a beam of light appeared in his sight. Zichen's pupils shrank. The light of power on his body surged. After years of fighting, Zichen had long given up hiding his strength. The 3-star divine spirit and the 3 thunder balls were all displayed. The demonic saber blocked, and a strong aura surged. With a bang, the light of power shattered. Zichen's body flew backward. He stood on the river, looking at the forest from afar. A person stood there. It was a stranger. Zichen had never seen him before. The power of thunder flowed around him. He was a 5-star divine spirit. The other party walked out of the forest, holding a thick long saber in his hand. His eyes were cold. He opened his mouth as if to say something. Before he could finish his sentence, Zichen's figure had already disappeared. A dangerous aura came at him. The 5-star divine spirit shouted, "You're courting death!" The saber slashed down. Its aura surged and directly cut the river in front of it. Zichen appeared behind the other party, fighting back to back with the 5-star divine spirit. There was a deep saber wound on his chest. His bones could be seen. He stood there, motionless. Behind him, the 5-star Holy Spirit froze in mid-slash. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. The disconnected river in front of them reconnected and flowed downstream. Blood seeped out of the corner of the 5-star Holy Spirit's mouth. His body was slanted, and the long saber in his hand fell to the ground, making a sound. "Pooh!" Zichen suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. He turned around and collected the corpse, as well as the long blade that had fallen to the ground. Then, he flew towards the other side of the river. He and the 5-star Holy Spirit had decided life and death with one move. As soon as they left the riverside, a sword light flew from the horizon. It was like a sword that held up the sky. It once again divided the land into two, and even a clear cut appeared in the sky. After the sword light, a 5-star Holy Spirit caught up. He looked at the bloodstains on the ground and cursed. "Damn it!" He sent a message to the sky, then chased after them. A few moments later, another 8 people arrived, and they were all 5-star Saint Spirits. They took a cursory look at the battlefield, then crossed the river and continued their pursuit. "He actually killed Hu Kai in one move. Truly amazing." Just as the 8 of them left, an indifferent voice rang out from the forest. A young man in a long black robe walked out of the forest. His eyes were like lightning, as if they contained infinite lightning. "That should be his last attack. Hu Kai was killed because he didn't check." Another young man walked out. He was wearing a purple armor and carried a long spear on his back. But his senses are very sharp. He knew that danger was approaching, so he made the right choice in time. The young man's gaze fell on the other side, where there was a lot of 5-star exotic beasts' blood. "Moreover, he is really strong." Among those at the same level, I'm afraid that only those at the peak of the core can suppress him. A faint smile appeared at the corner of the black-robed young man's mouth. "Tuahua, are you afraid?" The young man named Tuahua snorted coldly and said, "I'm not afraid. I'm just excited. Being able to kill an existence comparable to the peak of the core, just thinking about it makes me excited." He stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. "This time, we can't let him get away. Don't worry. With me, Guanjin, here, he won't be able to get away." The black-robed young man squatted down. He reached out and wiped the blood left by Zichin on the ground, then held it in his hand. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes. The light fell on the blood, which sizzled and evaporated quickly. Such pure power. No wonder he's so strong. When the blood dissipated, Guanjin's gaze turned to the other side of the river. "This time you're dead." The 2 figures disappeared from where they stood. Zichin was running away. He didn't know what kind of danger was behind him, but his strong senses told him that if he didn't end the battle quickly, death would have been waiting for him. Therefore, he used the Eye of Destruction and the demonic blade to kill the 5-star Saint Spirit at the cost of his injuries. After that, he ran away without hesitation. At this moment, there were 5-star Saint Spirits chasing after him within the range of his spiritual thoughts. These 5-star Saint Spirits were a great threat to him, but they weren't the real source of the crisis. Therefore, he didn't dare to stop and kill them one by one. Zichin, who was severely injured, ran for some distance, but the sense of danger in his heart didn't disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. He swallowed the last life-saving elixir without hesitation. After the elixir entered his stomach, Zichen's injuries began to heal. "Damn it! Isn't this guy seriously injured? Why is he still so fast?" The 5-star Saint Spirit, who was chasing after him, looked angry. He had been chasing for a long time, and he had consumed a lot of his energy, but his opponent hadn't fallen yet. The faces of the other 5-star Saint Spirits also darkened. They were all core disciples of the Thunder Clan. They were all 5-star saints and had mastered the Thunder Clan's powerful techniques, but they couldn't catch up with Zichin, who was only a 3-star saint. The few people with ugly expressions soon discovered that not only did Zichen's speed not slow down, it had instead become even faster. About 2 hours later, all the 5-star Holy Spirits stopped in their tracks because the enemy had disappeared. "Spread out and look for him," the 5-star Saint Spirit in the lead said, looking terrible. The 9 5-star Saint Spirits were about to spread out when a cold voice came from behind them. "Don't spread out. Chase him in a straight line. He's right in front." It was the 6-star Saint Spirit, Guanjin. He and Tuahua had caught up in time. The 9 5-star Saint Spirits obviously knew Guanjin's means, so they moved forward without hesitation. Half a day later, they found the aura left by Zichin. A few hours later, they met Zichin. They still didn't fight. Zichin fled first. Chapter 3445. Is this guy even human? Of course he is, but he's so weird. It's been half a year. We've been running for half a year. Yeah, we've met so many times in this half a year, but we haven't fought a single battle. That guy is not only as cunning as a rabbit, but his physical fitness is also freakishly strong. 2 5-star holy spirits flew forward, one on the left and one on the right. They were from the Hu and Xian families. One was called Huyang, and the other was called Xian Feiwei. They were 2 of the 9 5-star holy spirits, who were chasing after Ziqin. Since the first time Ziqin entered the saint-level battlefield, the 2 families had been setting up a trap. They spent several years quietly sending 10 5-star holy spirits. Since Ziqin was discovered half a year ago, and he had killed one of them at the cost of his life, the 2 parties had started a 6-year-long chase. Under the guidance of Master Guanjin, they had found Ziqin several times, but each time, he had cleverly escaped before they could surround him. There had not been a single battle. The 9 5-star saint spirits were all enraged. Guanjin and Tuohua followed behind. Either of them had the ability to kill Ziqin. Unfortunately, they had not found a chance to do so in the past half a year. Guanjin, do you have a plan? Tuohua, who was walking forward, was slightly angry. If this continues, we won't be able to do anything. Guanjin raised his eyebrows slightly. Looking at the silent Guanjin, Tuohua said, We haven't done anything in the past half a year. If this continues, our reward won't be able to make up for our losses. A 6-star Holy Spirit would naturally gain quite a lot from staying in this area for half a year. However, they had been chasing after Ziqin for half a year, and they had gained nothing. Guanjin, who had been silent, suddenly said, 4 times. What? Tuohua looked at him in surprise. We've been here 4 times in half a year, Guanjin said in a deep voice. You mean that guy is leading us in circles? That's impossible. Of course, Tuohua did not believe him. He was a 6-star Holy Spirit, and his senses were extremely sharp. If Ziqin was leading them around in circles, how could he not sense it? It is indeed hard to believe, but I can see some remnants of power, Guanjin said. That's why I'm sure this is the 4th time. How could this be? Tuohua's expression became unnatural. Who blocked our senses? Could it be that there is an expert secretly guarding Ziqin? Guanjin shook his head. It doesn't seem like it. If there really is a powerhouse, wouldn't it be better to just stop us? Why did he have to block his perception? You should know that Ziqin's strength hasn't improved at all in the past 6 months, other than running away. Why don't we know we're going in circles? Guanjin pointed at his feet and said, Perhaps it's because of this area. This region? Tuohua was still extremely astonished and puzzled. Guanjin smiled and said, You're focused on cultivation and don't care about the outside world. This is a saint-level battlefield. Other than danger, there are opportunities that come with danger. I'm guessing it's because of the terrain, and not because of that guy. Maybe he doesn't know that he's been going in circles in the same place for the past 6 months. Tuohua's eyes lit up and said, You mean there might be opportunities here? Guanjin smiled and said, Maybe, but I just thought of a way to catch him. What way? Go back. If he comes here for the 5th time, then we can go back and catch him. Is that feasible? If he comes here for the 5th time, then this method will work. Otherwise, he'll run away. Tuohua shook his head and said decisively, We can't let him run away, or we'll lose even more. Guanjin thought for a moment and said, Well, then how about this? You take a few people and continue the chase. I'll take a few people and stay here. Tuohua said, I can't sense his presence, so I'll lose him. You go, I'll hide here until you show up. Don't worry, it'll take at least half a month. Ziqin was in a bad mood because the pursuers had been chasing him for half a year. No matter how fast he sped up, he couldn't get rid of them. If it weren't for his sharp senses, he would have been caught and killed long ago. Along the way, the only thing that made him feel slightly better was the fact that they rarely encountered any spirit beasts. Not only did this prevent them from catching up to him, but it also prevented Zichen from seeing a spirit beast but not daring to kill it. Well, it's starting again. Zichen, who was running away, frowned. He had once again sensed a summoning force. This force had been there since the last time he ran away. It was just that it was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, so Zichen couldn't pinpoint its exact location. He had been urging all the strength in his body, and at the same time, using his spiritual thoughts to sense the direction of the summoning force. Zichen didn't have any extra gains in the past 6 months, but it was obviously wrong to say that he didn't have any gains. The pressure of escaping for his life had improved his lightning body by a lot, and the power of his 3 stars Holy Spirit had also increased a lot because of it. Now, Zichen was slowly changing his direction according to the strength of the summoning force. He didn't know that he had been running around in the same place all this time because his sharp senses were blocked by a mysterious force. In his spiritual thoughts, he felt a familiar wave again. He knew that the enemy was coming again. He didn't dare to be careless and gradually increased his speed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Just like that, he ran for another half a month. The summoning force was getting stronger and stronger, but Zichen couldn't find the real door. He was like a headless fly bumping around the wall. The only thing that made him feel lucky was that the summoning force was unprecedentedly strong. The pursuers behind him were still catching up, step by step. Zichen suddenly stopped, and his expression changed drastically. All of a sudden, 5 auras appeared in front of him, blocking his path. He turned around, wanting to run away. At this moment, another powerful aura appeared behind him, blocking his escape route. He was surrounded. "You're right." A cold voice sounded, and a man in armor holding a spear appeared in Zichen's line of sight. The man didn't deliberately suppress his aura. Zichen cried out, "A 6 stars Holy Spirit! Your senses are indeed sharp. No wonder you could hold on for so long." Another voice came from behind, and Guanjin walked forward with a strange light in his eyes. At the same time, the 9 5 stars Holy Spirits began to close in on him. 2 6 stars and 9 5 stars. If the cavalry didn't fall from the sky, Zichen would be dead for sure. Chapter 34-46. Zichen had been guessing that there were 6-star holy saints among the pursuers. Now, his guess had become a reality. And there was more than one. He quickly thought of a way to escape, but first, he dismissed the idea of forcefully breaking through the encirclement of the 5-star Holy Spirits. If he dared to move, he would definitely be struck by lightning. He was only a 3-star Holy Saint, and the weakest among them was 2 stars higher than him. But what puzzled Zichen was why they were blocking his way. "You're good at running." Guanjin came to the front, looked at Zichen, and said, "Tell me, why are you running around in circles?" "What?" Hearing Guanjin's words, Zichen's expression changed. He was running around in circles? No wonder they were able to block him. Looking at Zichen's changing expression, Guanjin said, "Looks like you really don't know." Zichen said in a low voice, "I really don't know why I'm running around in circles." "But how do you know?" Guanjin smiled faintly and said, "Because I have a special power that can find the traces you left behind." Zichen suddenly understood. No wonder the enemy had been following them like a ghost for half a year, refusing to leave for so long. At the same time, he also felt desperate. With such a guy following him, there was no way he could escape. "Tell me the reason. Why are you running around in circles?" Guanjin said. "Tell me the reason, and maybe I'll give you a quick death." Zichen did not answer but asked, "I have no grudges with you. Why are you chasing me?" "No grudges? Kid, you're really not afraid of biting your tongue in the wind?" A 5-star Holy Spirit behind him sneered. Zichen looked at them and asked, "Are you from the Hu and Xian families?" The 5-star Holy Spirit snorted. Tuahua said, "I'm not." Guanjin smiled and said, "Neither am I." Zichen's mood did not improve because of this. Instead, it got worse. The two of them had no grudges with him, but they were in this team. Obviously, they were hired. The Hu clan and the Xian clan had actually hired 2 6-star martial artists. Naturally, the price they had paid was not small. At the same time, their desire to kill him was naturally extremely firm. My patience is limited. Tell me, why are you wandering around this place? Guanjin asked again. Zichen said, Are you sure I'm going to go around in circles? Why else would you be surrounded? Guanjin's expression turned cold. Speak now, or I'll search your soul and find out everything I want to know. All right, I'll tell you. As soon as Zichen finished speaking, he turned around and threw a punch to the side. This punch was his full strength. Countless streams of power converged into his fist. His punch landed in the air, but it did not miss. A ripple spread out, and a light barrier appeared in front of Zichen. There was a huge hole in the barrier, and on the other side of the hole was a bright space. Shwa! Zichen rushed in without hesitation. At the same time, a cold smile flashed across Guanjin's face. True light shot out from his eyes and landed in the space that Zichen's punch had broken open. In the next moment, the healing space froze. Let's go! Guanjin shouted and was the first to rush in. The others followed closely behind. Taking advantage of the moment when the healing space froze, they entered. This was a strange space. There was nothing in it, and one could not see the end of it at a glance. Where is he? Guanjin, who was the first to enter, released his powerful spiritual thoughts. However, he did not find any trace of Zichen. It was impossible for him to disappear in an instant. He could only say that this place was a little strange. Then, Guanjin realized that the others could not see him either. What the hell is going on? He was obviously puzzled. Then, he walked forward. Just as he walked for about 100 feet, a ray of light appeared in front of him. The ray of light landed and turned into an exotic beast. Lightning flashed on the exotic beast's body. This is... Seeing this exotic beast, Guanjin's eyes widened in surprise. An exotic beast with the bone of the holy thunder demon. The exotic beast pounced forward, and a tyrannical aura surged. Guanjin exclaimed again. 6-star realm! To him, an exotic beast with the bone of the holy thunder demon was definitely a big threat. As the danger approached, he slapped out with his palm. Countless lightning flashes circled around his palm, and a great battle broke out. Zichen had already felt despair, but after hearing Guanjin's words he saw hope again. He had been following the summoning, but he did not expect to keep going in circles, over and over again, but he could not find the entrance. Since that was the case, he would forcibly open an entrance. Moreover, Zichen sensed that the summoning power was the strongest in the place he had stopped at. In the end, he succeeded. Zichen came to a strange space. There was nothing in this space. He sensed that the pursuers behind him were following, so he sped up. The next moment, he saw an exotic beast blocking his way. His face became incomparably gloomy. There was indeed an exotic beast blocking his way, and a powerful pursuer behind him. However, Zichen soon sensed that something was wrong. The Holy Spirit that should have caught up with him immediately still did not appear. At the same time, Zichen sensed that the exotic beast in front of him was actually a 3-star one. One had to know that he had never fought a 3-star exotic beast in this area. In the information he had received, there were no 3-star exotic beasts at all. Before Zichen could continue thinking, the 3-star exotic beast charged at him. It stretched out its sharp claws with lightning flashing on them. Bone of the Holy Thunder Demon? Zichen was a little surprised, but he did not stop. He slapped down with his palm. He was not afraid of anyone at the same level. With a loud bang, the 3-star exotic beast was sent flying to the ground, its body tumbling far away. Roar! The exotic beast roared. After getting up, it charged at Zichen again, not fearing death. Zichen punched out. A 3-star Holy Spirit with the power of 3 lightning balls. Another boom rang out. Countless lightning bolts exploded, forming a shockwave. This punch landed on the 3-star exotic beast's head, directly destroying its soul. Swish! The space distorted, and the dead 3-star exotic beast disappeared. Zichen was slightly stunned. Where it disappeared, another 3-star exotic beast appeared, charging at Zichen without any explanation. Zichen did not understand what was going on. Why did the exotic beast from before disappear? Or did it revive? Another punch came down. With another boom, the 3-star exotic beast was killed again. Before Zichen could collect the corpse of the 3-star exotic beast disappeared again. Immediately after, a new 3-star exotic beast appeared. Zichen stared at the new exotic beast. After a short exchange, he realized that it was a little different from before. Although its cultivation level was the same, the number of holy thunder demon bones it had was different. Zichen punched again. This time, he used the holy thunder explosion, easily killing it. Chapter 34-47. Energy rumbled as the power of lightning surged. One after another, 3-star exotic beasts were easily killed by Zichen. Zichen hadn't even used his demonic blade yet. Compared to the powerful Zichen, Guanjin and the others seemed to be having a hard time. This was a test between people of the same level. It was inevitable that everyone would find it strenuous. The 10th 3-star exotic beast appeared in front of Zichen. Its limbs, head, and back were all shining with lightning, indicating that it had a lot of holy thunder demon bones. Whoosh! It charged at Zichen at an extremely fast speed. There's really a speed boost. Seeing this, Zichen's eyes shone. However, your level is too low. Zichen's figure flashed as he used the 9 flashes of holy thunder. While dodging his opponent's attack, he threw a punch downwards. The punch whistled down, distorting the surrounding space. Boom! The 3-star exotic beast head was hit by Zichen's punch, and its body immediately fell down. However, it didn't die, because the holy thunder demon bone in its head neutralized most of the power of the punch. Zichen was a little surprised. He descended and threw out another punch. His speed had an absolute advantage. He wasn't afraid of anyone of the same level. Rumbling sounds rang out continuously. Powerful forces shook continuously, forming countless ripples that spread out. After a dozen or so punches, Zichen finally shattered his opponent's soul bit by bit. As the 3-star exotic beast died, its body disappeared. This was a great loss for Zichen, because he didn't get a single demonic bone after killing 10 exotic beasts in a row. However, at this moment, the unchanging scene changed. The space in front of him distorted, and a passage appeared. There were stairs that extended into the distance in the passage. Zichen walked towards the stairs curiously. The stairs were in the void. Zichen stepped on the stairs as he walked forward. Every step he took would cause a ripple on the stairs, and lightning would scatter in all directions. Zichen didn't know why, but he still spread out his spiritual senses and didn't find any danger. After climbing about 100 steps, Zichen saw a huge castle appear above his head. The gate of the castle was closed, and Zichen walked forward. Just as he reached the entrance, a ray of light descended and turned into a person. Zichen's expression changed. He took a few steps back and stared at the other party. "Those who trespass into the Thunder Fortress shall die." The other party's voice was cold, and his eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. An aura that belonged to a 4-star saint spirit gushed out from his body. Thunder Fortress? Hearing this name, Zichen was a little surprised, and his emotions fluctuated a lot. Was this a Thunder Castle? At this moment, the other party threw a punch forward. As he punched forward, his opponent's palm lit up. During that time, one could faintly see the bones of his hand made of lightning. Seeing this scene, Zichen's expression changed again. He cried out involuntarily, "Holy Thunder Demon Bone!" The fist was already nearing, and it contained an extremely violent force. It seemed like it was going to drown Zichen. On Zichen's right hand, the demon bone was activated. He then used his strongest strength to collide with the incoming fist. At this moment, Zichen was extremely excited. This unknown four-star saint spirit had indirectly proved to him that humans could also condense the holy thunder demon bone. When the two fists met, a loud boom was heard. Zichen only felt a strong force entering his body, and his body was pushed back. He was even more excited. The other party only had one holy thunder demon bone, and he was already so powerful. In the next moment, Zichen went forward again. He used all three of his powers. At the same time, he also used the demon bone palm and the holy thunder explosion. The second fist collided. Accompanied by a deafening sound, the four-star saint spirit with the holy thunder demon bone flew back and smashed into the door of the main hall. Blood stained the door red. His body slowly fell down, and his aura dissipated. With one punch, Zichen destroyed a four-star saint with the holy thunder demon bone. Before Zichen could carefully examine the other party's holy thunder demon bone, he saw the other party's body disappear into thin air, turning into countless light spots. These light spots were all lightning energy. They looked very pure, like fireflies, and they went straight for Zichen. In the next moment, they merged into Zichen's body. Zichen was shocked. He thought that this was some kind of powerful attack. However, he soon realized that after these light spots entered his body, they divided into two parts. One part went into abdomen through his meridians, and the other part went into his body. This energy was very pure and extremely powerful. It was even more powerful than the energy of a saint crystal obtained from killing a four-star exotic beast. Moreover, it didn't need to be deliberately refined. It could quickly strengthen his body. Zichen looked at the closed door in front of him. His eyes were shining. If there were more of such existences behind this door, then this place would be a place of opportunity for Zichen. Zichen's eyes became fervent as he walked forward. The blood on the door had disappeared. He exerted force with both hands, trying to push open the door of the castle. It was very heavy, but it wasn't unshakable. Using 3 stars and 3 powers, the door slowly opened. Countless lightning bolts filled his vision. It was as if the door had been sealed for many years. An ancient aura rushed towards him. There was no danger, only countless lightning bolts. Zichen took a long time to get used to it. He stepped through the door. The door that had just opened behind him closed by itself. In front of him, there was still a staircase, which was divided into several stages. Zichen walked forward. After walking 100 feet, a lightning bolt descended from the sky and turned into a person. "Trespassers of the Thunder Fortress, die!" It was still the same cold voice as before. After saying that, he started to attack. This time, Zichen noticed that the other party had the Holy Thunder Demon Bone on both of his hands. The two of them clashed several times. This time, Zichen didn't manage to kill the other party. They were evenly matched. Sensing the strength of the other party, Zichen frowned slightly. The other party's fists attacked again. This time, it was 2 fists, which completely blocked Zichen's path. Cold light flashed in his eyes. Zichen used the 9 flash of the Holy Thunder. His body flashed a few times and dodged the other party's attack. At the same time, he unsheathed the demon blade and slashed the other party's neck from the side. Obviously, the other party didn't have an advantage in speed because he only had the hand bones. The other party's body was split into 2. As soon as it fell to the ground, it turned into countless light spots and entered Zichen's body. This time, the light spots were much denser than before. After absorbing the energy, Zichen's cultivation improved a little. This made him very happy, as if he saw the hope of breaking through. Because there was still a long way to go. After walking up the stairs of the second section, another person descended from the sky. This time, the other party had the Holy Thunder Demon Bone on all parts of his body. Chapter 34-48. The Holy Thunder Demon Bones on his hands represented endless power, while the ones on his feet represented speed. This battle was not easy. This was a battle of speed. They kept flashing and attacking. They were evenly matched. After nearly 100 moves, Zichen still could not take down his opponent. Then, he deliberately took a hit from his opponent. At the same time, he swung his saber horizontally and cut his opponent's body in half. As expected, the other party's body dispersed, and Zichen once again obtained pure energy. Perhaps it was because his opponent had more holy thunder demon bones, but this time, more energy entered Zichen's body than before. Then came the third. This time, in addition to his hands and feet, his forearms were also holy thunder demon bones. During this time, he used them to block Zichen's demonic saber. There was a clanging sound, like the sound of metal clashing. Following that was the fourth one. The legs below the opponent's knees were all holy thunder devil bones. Zichen had to expend a lot of energy before he was able to kill the opponent. The fifth and sixth. The number of sacred lightning demon bones in their bodies was continuously increasing. Furthermore, their fighting methods were also changing. His battle prowess grew stronger and stronger, and Zichen found it more and more difficult to deal with him. The only thing that made him feel fortunate was that his opponent's cultivation was only at the 4-star level. If it was a higher level existence with so many holy lightning demon bones, Zichen would have died without a doubt. Demonic saber, demonic bones, holy spirit flying saber, and various fighting skills. In the next few battles, Zichen used all his strength. He did not dare to be careless. He won one battle after another. After each victory, he gained more power. Some of it was used to recover, but most of it was used to improve his strength. After 9 battles, Zichen finally stood in front of the main hall. He exhaled heavily. At this time, he was only one step away from becoming a 4-star Holy Spirit. At the same time, his physical strength was just one step away from condensing 4 thunder balls. Unfortunately, the enemy had disappeared. Zichen came to the front of the main hall. He was about to push the door open when he suddenly stopped. He slowly turned around and saw that there was another person behind him. Compared to the 9 people Zichen had killed before, this person was clearly different. The moment he appeared, he did not say that anyone who trespassed into the Thunder Fortress would die. Furthermore, his eyes were extremely bright, as if he was in existence with independent intelligence. He was sizing up Zichen. Zichen looked at him warily. Interesting. The other party suddenly spoke up and chuckled. Zichen clenched his fists. Do you know what this place is? The other party asked again. Zichen slowly shook his head and gradually became nervous. There was no aura around the other party, but he felt an extremely strong pressure. It is very surprising that you were able to reach this place. Under normal circumstances, the combat strength you have displayed is sufficient for you to obtain the items in the main hall. Zichen didn't say anything. Usually, people who said something like that would express another meaning later. The other party continued. However, if you can defeat me, the greatest opportunity here will be yours. What if I don't defeat him? Zichen asked with a calm expression. Then you will go back the way you came, and there will be no more gains. The other party smiled and said, Of course, you can also choose to reject it and go in to obtain what you want. I want to know your cultivation level. 5-star Saint Spirit. Thinking of the powerful 4 stars from before, the other party's 5 stars would naturally be even more powerful. However, Zichen didn't hesitate and nodded. All right, I will continue the challenge. 1. As soon as he finished speaking, the other party activated the power of 5 stars. Sensing the unique power flowing around the other party's body, Zichen's face turned pale. The other party had more than half of the Holy Thunder Demon Bone. In addition, there was a gap between the 2 realms. It seemed that Zichen had no chance of winning. The other party smiled faintly and punched out. This punch seemed to be able to pierce through space. The power of the Holy Thunder Demon Bone was activated and a strong wave spread out. Zichen could only feel the dangerous aura coming towards him. He shouted and used his strongest power to punch out. Boom! With a loud bang, Zichen's body flew backward. In the strong collision, Zichen didn't have any advantage. The moment Zichen landed on the ground, he coughed up blood. It seems that you have made the wrong choice. The other party smiled faintly and rushed towards Zichen again at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, the other party had already arrived in front of Zichen. A terrifying aura descended from above like a torrential current. Zichen's eyes lit up. The eye of destruction caused the other party's attack to pause for a moment. Taking advantage of this pause, Zichen's figure flashed and arrived beside the other party. He unsheathed the demonic saber in his hand. Your pupil technique is not bad. Unfortunately, your cultivation level is too low. You are too greedy. Before the demonic saber was unsheathed, a strong force fell on Zichen's body. The next moment, Zichen was shocked to find that the demonic saber that was about to be unsheathed was forced back by an invisible force. He felt a sharp pain in his palm. The demonic saber had left his hand. At the same time, a strong force fell on his chest and sent his body flying again. Zichen fell to the ground. He felt that all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. His demonic saber was in the other party's hand. Seeing this, 3 words appeared in Zichen's mind. Unmatched! The other party was too strong. He was the strongest 5-star Holy Spirit he had ever seen. Whether it was speed or strength, he had no shortcomings. The other party looked at Zichen and said faintly, It seems that you have to go back the way you came. Go back the way I came? Zichen stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. I admit that you are very strong. However, when I agreed to fight with you, I had already expected this. I thought that if I used all my strength, I would be able to fight with you. It seems that I overestimated myself and underestimated you. Since you know, why aren't you leaving? Earlier was just a preliminary battle to test the gap between us. Now, it's time to fight to the death. Zichen's aura changed. He began to form a seal with both hands. Of course, it was the seal of the thunder controlling technique. This was also Zichen's greatest reliance. As long as he was willing, the thunder controlling technique was a move that would determine life and death. Once it was used, either the enemy would be killed or he would be devoured to death. Seeing Zichen forming the seal, the 5-star Holy Spirit's eyes changed. There was surprise, but more than that, there seemed to be relief. In Zichen's hands, the seal had been completed. Thunder controlling technique! A roar came from the void. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, illuminating the place. The energy in Zichen's body began to drain rapidly. In the blink of an eye, all of his energy was consumed. Even his vitality began to fade. Thunder fell from the sky and fell on the 5-star Holy Spirit. Another deafening roar sounded. The sound of rolling thunder reverberated, and the power of countless thunderbolts wreaked havoc. Chapter 34-49. Zichen, who was lying on the ground, was exhausted. Not only had he used up a lot of his energy, but he had also lost a lot of his vitality. However, his face was beaming with joy. Because the power of lightning manipulation had been demonstrated. The 5-star Holy Spirit's body disintegrated into countless light spots and flew towards Zichen. These light spots entered Zichen's body. The vitality that he had lost earlier began to recover on its own. At the same time, a lot of pure energy flowed into abdomen through his meridians. Zichen gradually regained some strength. He then sat cross-legged and began to concentrate on refining this energy. Before this, Zichen was already very close to becoming a 4-star Holy Spirit. Now that he had the help of this pure energy, his strength began to increase. From a quantitative change, it became a qualitative change. Countless bolts of lightning surged out from his body, and a tyrannical aura filled the hall. At this moment, Zichen successfully advanced from a 3-star to a 4-star. A 4-star Holy Spirit. The remaining energy in his body flowed into abdomen through his meridians. Zichen's realm gradually stabilized. He opened his eyes. Lightning flashed in his eyes. There was a hint of joy on his face. To be able to break through in such a short time was beyond Zichen's expectations. After getting up, Zichen adapted to his own strength. Then, he walked forward. When he reached the door of the hall, Zichen exerted his strength. The door of the hall slowly opened. An ancient aura circulated. Countless lightning bolts appeared in front of him. He was slightly distracted. After adjusting his emotions, he walked into the hall. It was as if he had come to a starry sky. Balls of lightning were floating in the hall. They were rotating at a constant speed. These balls of lightning looked exactly the same. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts. He could not detect any abnormalities. Suddenly, the balls of lightning in the air sped up and formed a vortex. There was a lightning passage in the vortex. An even brighter ball of lightning appeared from it. "This is your reward." A voice suddenly sounded behind Zichen. He turned his head and saw the person behind him. His expression changed. The other party was the 5-star Holy Spirit who had died under the lightning manipulation technique. "What happened before was just a test for you, not my main body." The other party smiled faintly and pointed at the lightning ball that fell from the vortex. "This is your reward for challenging someone of a higher rank." "What's that?" Zichen asked. "It's very suitable for you, or rather, it's most suitable for you." The other party did not explain further. Instead, he said, "Try and see if you can successfully refine it." Zichen nodded. He could sense a terrifying power emanating from the other party's body. If they wanted to harm him, they would have done so long ago. Zichen stretched out his hand and saw the lightning ball slowly descend into his palm. The thunder ball, which was originally undetectable by spiritual senses, seemed to have a layer of seal removed. When Zichen probed with his spiritual senses, he saw the thunder ball turn into a ray of light and enter Zichen's spiritual sea. Zichen stood there motionless, as if he had been immobilized. That person stood to the side, quietly watching this scene. Time trickled by. "It seems that this time, you're the only one who has succeeded." After a long time, that person murmured in a low voice. Zichen still did not move. Time passed day by day. Half a month later, Zichen's body suddenly glowed brightly. His eyes were still closed, as if he was in an unconscious state. Immediately after, a strong devouring power was emitted from his body. The lightning balls floating above his head released a materialized light at this moment. They were like a rain of lightning as they fell towards Zichen. Zichen absorbed the lightning rain, and the light on his body became even brighter. "It seems that he has succeeded." Seeing this scene, a smile appeared on that person's face. He saw that the power of lightning gathered on Zichen's body was increasing. At the same time, 3 lightning balls of saint power appeared. In the sky, the lightning was like a rain of light, constantly falling and being absorbed by Zichen's body. The lightning rain was all pure energy. According to Zichen's current state, he should have gathered the 4th lightning ball of saint power. But he had not succeeded. Just like this, after an unknown period of time, just as the lightning balls above his head dimmed, Zichen's body finally changed. The demonic bone in his right hand suddenly appeared, emitting a terrifying fluctuation. It was the hand bone from the demonic clan. It was very powerful, but it was not very compatible with Zichen. At this moment, the demonic clan's hand bone that appeared was actually disintegrating. During this time, there was a stream of pure energy that fell into Zichen's right hand, while the other parts were dissipating. In a moment, the entire demonic bone disintegrated. Part of it was absorbed by Zichen, and part of it disappeared. The person next to him watched this scene quietly. He did not show any surprise on his face, as if everything was within his expectations. Just as the demonic bone disintegrated, a powerful aura suddenly surged on Zichen's right hand. There was obvious lightning gathering there, and it became more and more dazzling. In the end, a new hand bone appeared. It was the same as the demonic bone before, but the difference was that this time, it was a saint bone. This phenomenon continued until the bones in Zichen's entire arm were clearly visible. It was filled with lightning, and then the phenomenon stopped. Zichen opened his eyes. Looking at his entire right arm that was glowing, his face was filled with excitement. It seems that this holy thunder bone refining technique can refine a saint bone that is comparable to the holy thunder demonic bone. Zichen clenched his fist. Suddenly, an explosive sound came from his fingertips. This was caused by the air being crushed. It seemed that the people of the Thunder Clan could also refine saint bones. They just needed a corresponding cultivation technique. The dim lightning balls above his head disappeared one by one. Zichen turned around and saw that the middle-aged man was still standing there. He clasped his fist and said, "Thank you, Senior." The middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "This is your fortune. It has nothing to do with me. Moreover, you were able to come here because of the guidance of the Holy Thunder Body Refining Technique. This Holy Thunder Bone Refining Technique is naturally the most suitable for you. This is the only way for you to have the possibility of becoming stronger in the future." Zichen nodded as if he understood. "Are those losers outside your friends?" the middle-aged man asked. Zichen naturally knew who the middle-aged man was talking about. He shook his head and said, "No, they were chasing after me. If I hadn't discovered this place, I would have been killed." "As expected." The middle-aged man sighed and said, "It seems that it is the same no matter when." Zichen looked at the middle-aged man in confusion. The middle-aged man clearly had no intention of explaining to Zichen. He looked at Zichen and said, "The lightning controlling technique is no small matter. You can use it more often in battle. Perhaps there will be unexpected gains." Zichen nodded again. The lightning controlling technique had always been his life-saving method, and it had never disappointed him. Could it be that this wasn't his trump card? "Are you going to leave directly?" the middle-aged man asked. Chapter 3450. Here, Zichen had successfully advanced to the 4-star level. At the same time, he had also condensed the sacred bone. His combat strength had improved tremendously. Even if he encountered a 6-star sacred spirit, he could still fight them, let alone those 5-star sacred spirits. When Zichen reappeared, the 9 5-star sacred spirits from the Hu clan and the Xian clan were dejected. They were not in high spirits. This was because they had encountered the same test. However, they were eliminated after taking a few steps. Fortunately, it was only a test. Otherwise, they would have died. Although they did not know what rewards they would get after passing the test, it was obvious that they had missed an opportunity. This saint-level battlefield was left behind a long time ago. Even the Holy Thunder Clan had not fully grasped the various opportunities inside. In the history of those who had obtained the opportunity, which one of them wasn't a genius among the core disciples? Suddenly, their expressions changed. This was because there was one more person in front of them. The 9 of them stood up and looked coldly at Zichen. "Damn you, you finally showed up!" Zichen looked at the 9 of them coldly as if he was looking at a dead man. "Kill!" The 9 of them surrounded Zichen and attacked him. They did not have the awareness of being sacred spirits of a higher realm. Zichen, who was about to use the demonic saber to kill them, suddenly changed his mind. He quickly retreated. Then, he began to form a seal and used the thunder manipulation technique. A roar came from the void. A bolt of lightning struck down. It was dazzling. A 5-star sacred spirit was hit. His vitality was immediately extinguished. Zichen was slightly stunned. Then, he disappeared from where he was. Several attacks was toward him and shredded his afterimage. Zichen, who appeared in another direction, was a little surprised. After killing a person with the thunder manipulation technique, he did not feel that it consumed too much energy. It was different from when he used to draw vitality. "Is it because my opponent is not strong enough?" Zichen thought. He dodged several attacks again and used the second thunder manipulation technique. Unsurprisingly, the second person was killed. In a one-on-one situation, the thunder manipulation technique was invincible. However, under the siege of so many people, the drawbacks of the lightning controlling technique were revealed. Zichen kept dodging and forming seals while dodging. However, the lethality of the lightning controlling technique was far inferior to the Devil Blade. However, Zichen kept the middle-aged man's reminder in mind. Perhaps if he used this technique more often, he would gain other benefits. The battle should have ended early, but Zichen had wasted a lot of time. Every time the thunder rumbled, a 5-star Holy Spirit would be killed. This was a sealed space, so it was impossible to escape. The group of powerhouses who had attacked with all their strength died one after another under the lightning controlling technique in despair. After killing the enemy, Zichen still didn't feel anything unusual about the lightning controlling technique. He stepped forward to collect the spoils of war and turned to walk towards another space. There was a 6-star Holy Spirit there. Walking into that space, Zichen saw Guanjin. "It's you!" Guanjin was surprised to see Zichen. A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes as he flew forward with the devil saber in hand. "You have a death wish!" Guanjin shouted. His 6-star Holy Spirit realm erupted, and a terrifying aura appeared. Zichen was expressionless as he unsheathed the devil saber. A saber arc slashed forward like a waterfall. Guanjin threw a punch, and a terrifying wave spread in all directions. The saber light shattered, and Guanjin flew back nearly 300 meters. He looked at Zichen in surprise. "You've broken through?" Zichen said coldly. "Just now." Now that he had broken through to 4-star, it wasn't difficult for him to fight a 6-star Holy Spirit like Guanjin. Zichen, who was charging forward, used the 4-star Holy Thunder Explosion with the 3-strength realm. The power of thunder exploded and drowned Guanjin in an instant. Guanjin's outer defense was shattered, and he flew back while coughing up blood. Guanjin's expression was extremely ugly. Although he was a 6-star Holy Spirit, he wasn't good at fighting. At this moment, he was obviously suppressed by Zichen. Looking at Zichen, who was charging at him again, he shouted, "You're courting death!" Zichen approached and threw a second punch. The space distorted as terrifying thunder surged. Guanjin clenched his fists and crossed them. Thunder surged out of his body and formed a defense. Countless patterns lit up on the surface of the defense. This was the Thunder Clan's defensive technique. Zichen's fist didn't slow down as it smashed down. Guanjin's defense crumbled. He flew back and coughed up blood again. The 4-star Zichen suppressed the 6-star Guanjin. Holy blood refinement! In the face of such a powerful Zichen, Guanjin was shocked and angry. He finally understood why the two clans had to go through so much trouble to kill a 3-star. A ray of light shot out from his eyes and landed on Zichen. At the same time, Guanjin's hands began to form a seal. Zichen felt the blood in his body start to boil, and he felt uncomfortable. His expression changed. The boiling feeling became more and more obvious. It was as if there was a flame burning his blood. Seeing the change in Zichen's expression, Guanjin sneered and said, "This is my special technique. Even if I don't come into contact with you, I can still kill you." Guanjin wasn't good at fighting. Among the core disciples, his combat strength was ranked at the bottom. However, those who knew Guanjin well knew that he couldn't be judged by his combat strength. His special eye technique could not only track people, but it also had a unique ability to kill people from a distance. Zichen's blood was flowing at a high speed. The power in his blood was in a state of chaos, and could burst out of his body at any time. Zichen used the Holy Thunder Body Refinement technique to control his body, but he found that it didn't work. Instead, it made things worse. It seemed that Guanjin's technique had an obvious restraining effect on people with physical strength. Countless geniuses have died under my eye technique. There were even core disciples. However, you're the first one who's as strong as you." Guanjin's expression was very proud. Zichen, whose face was as red as fire, suddenly stared at Guanjin and said, This is an eye technique?" Guanjin smiled proudly. "Of course." A strange expression appeared on Zichen's pained face. In the next moment, his eyes also lit up. The eye of destruction. When their gazes met, Guanjin's eyes went blank for a moment. The feeling of discomfort instantly dissipated. Zichen's body disappeared from where he was. The confusion in Guanjin's eyes disappeared, and the light in them returned. He was still proud. He saw a beam of light flying towards him. This is... His eyes widened in shock. The ray of light approached. Guanjin was stunned. He looked down at his body. The protective light on his body had disappeared, and a slanted line of blood appeared. Guanjin's eyes flashed as he suddenly understood his situation. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In the next moment, his soul was destroyed and his body separated. Chapter 3451. Looking at the dead Guanjin, Zichen felt very lucky. If it weren't for the Eye of Destruction, he would have been in danger. After recovering slightly, Zichen put away his spoils and walked into the next space. There was one person in this space. It was the sixth-star Tuahua. He wore purple armor, and held a long spear tightly in his hand. As Zichen appeared, his gaze swept forward, and a cold light surged in his eyes. Seeing this, Zichen was slightly startled. It seemed that the other party was waiting for him. Tuahua looked at Zichen and said in a deep voice, "It seems that you have obtained the opportunity here. Why do you say so?" Zichen said calmly. "The previous trial was mainly to show the different powers of the sacred thunder demon bone in different states. Among those of the same level, without physical strength, we won't have an advantage. It's almost impossible for us to succeed. The one with the highest chance of success is you." Zichen was a little surprised. He didn't expect the other party to be able to guess this. Tuahua said, "I want to know, what is the opportunity?" Zichen said, "When you die in battle, you will know. You are so confident. It seems that the others have already died in your hands." Tuahua's expression didn't change much. Zichen's expression changed slightly. Tuahua had guessed the reason but still remained calm. It seemed that his combat strength was not weak. Looking at Zichen's slightly changed expression, Tuahua said, "It seems that is the case. Let's end this quickly." Tuahua's six-star power surged out, and a powerful aura enveloped the surroundings. He shook the long spear in his hand and ripples surged out from the tip. As the ripples surged, an invisible pressure came from all directions and landed on Zichen's body. Zichen's body seemed to have sunk into a swamp, and his movements were affected. He didn't dare to be careless. Light circulated around his body as he activated his physical strength. As lightning enveloped his body, the pressure disappeared. At this moment, an ear-piercing shriek rang out. Tuahua's long spear had already arrived in front of him. Wherever the long spear passed, it left a white mark in the air. A cold, killing intent swept over from the front. Not daring to be careless, Zichen chopped down with the demonic saber in his hand. Whoosh! A beam of light appeared between heaven and earth. The curved blade collided with the long spear. With a boom, a powerful force spread out in all directions. Zichen and Tuahua both retreated. As they retreated, the long spear in Tuahua's hand had already left his hand. His hands quickly formed a seal, and his gaze was as cold as lightning. As the seal fell, a voice rang out. "Thunder Flood Dragon Spear!" A bestial roar came from the sky. The spear that was flying backwards suddenly released countless bolts of lightning. The lightning wrapped around the spear and turned into a lightning dragon. The aura around the Thunder Flood Dragon was enormous, surging with an extremely dangerous aura. "Destroy!" Tuahua shouted. The Thunder Flood Dragon swooped down. Sometimes it turned into a spear, showing off its sharpness. Sometimes it turned into a flood dragon, with a violent aura. Zichen, who felt a strong threat, clenched his right hand into a fist. The energy of the four-star forces and the third force continuously gathered on his fist. His expression was cold and stern. Instead of descending, his body rose up like a giant thunderbolt meteorite, going against the sky. "Holy thunder, explode!" Just as the two sides were about to collide, Zichen shouted in a low voice. He gathered his strongest strength in his fist and collided with the Thunder Flood Dragon. When the powerful energy collided, countless vibrations spread out in all directions. The entire space was distorted. Toahua, who was standing in the distance, said coldly, "It's useless. You're just a fist. Do you think you can block the attack of my Holy Spirit combat weapon?" As his voice fell, the Thunder Flood Dragon emitted an even more terrifying aura. At the same time, the Thunder Flood Dragon's body began to expand, as if it was going to devour Zichen. Explode. Zichen's expression was still cold. His all-out attack turned into a fist's radiance and exploded in front of him. With a deafening sound, the exploding thunderbolt directly drowned the huge Thunder Flood Dragon. Zichen, whose face was slightly pale, glanced at Toahua. His eyes were full of killing intent. Toahua's pupils shrank. A purple light lit up on his body, forming a defense. Outside the defense, a small thunder-flying dagger appeared and was spinning at high speed. After his sneak attack failed, Zichen's expression turned ugly. At this moment, the Thunder Flood Dragon was destroyed and the long spear flew back. Toahua, who was holding the long spear, saw several cracks on the surface of the long spear. A touch of anger flashed in his eyes. He had spent countless resources to obtain this long spear. He did not expect that it would be shattered by Zichen's punch. Naturally, the fighting spirit in it was damaged. "Boy, you've completely infuriated me." Toahua's aura became violent again. His hair danced wildly and the armor on his body emitted countless rays of light. "Do you know why Guanjin and I are here to help you? Because Guanjin is searching for you. Once he finds you, you won't be able to escape. As for me, I'm in charge of killing, so there's no way for you to escape." Toahua's eyes were filled with madness. "You've recklessly damaged my fighting spirit. Don't blame me for being impolite." Toahua's aura became more and more terrifying. This made Zichen feel a strong sense of threat. "You're very lucky. Because I've recently mastered a new technique. I originally wanted to compete with a core disciple." Toahua laughed loudly. "Although it's only an incomplete technique and I've only comprehended the surface, it's enough to make me invincible. Because it's a spirit extermination technique." Toahua did not see shock on Zichen's face. Instead, he saw confusion. He immediately guessed the reason. He mocked. "You idiot! Have you not heard of the Saint Spirit Realm's most powerful technique? That's the spirit extermination technique. It's an ancient technique that exists to exterminate the spirit race." Hearing Toahua's explanation, Zichen did not know why, but he suddenly felt uneasy. At this moment, his powerful soul seemed to be trembling in fear. Toahua gripped his spear tightly. On the surface of his purple armor, countless thunderbolts appeared. The powerful six-star power converged on the long spear. The long spear began to tremble. The cracks on its surface were actually repairing themselves. "Spirit extermination technique, Thunder Dragon Break!" Toahua thrust his spear forward. Countless thunderbolts exploded and a loud dragon roar resounded between heaven and earth. Around his body, the shadow of a thunder dragon appeared. The thunder dragon's aura was not very terrifying. However, when it appeared, Zichen felt a strong sense of threat. This feeling was as if he had met his natural enemy and was being restrained. At this moment, his soul was trembling. He felt a great sense of fear. How could this be? Zichen found it hard to believe. He had experienced countless life and death situations along the way. Why would he feel such an unprecedented sense of fear at this moment? He gritted his teeth. His gaze quickly became firm. "Damn it! Get out of my way!" He shook his head violently. He wanted to dispel the fear in his mind. At the same time, he madly circulated the power in his body without holding back. Thus, the Saint Bone also appeared. Just as the Saint Bone appeared, a strange power spread out and enveloped Zichen's body. The fear in his heart was dispelled. At this moment, the long spear was approaching. Zichen did not hesitate to attack with his fist. It was still the Holy Thunder Explosion. However, unlike the previous one, the Holy Thunder Explosion this time was activated by the Saint Bone, You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.